Can people hear that? Hello? Oh, there we go. All right, roll call, starting with Agba. Becker? Here. Braun? Here. Bruick? Present. Burks? Cecil? Dre? Here. Eisma? Engelken? Here. Frencher? Gopa? Here. Hackbarth? Here. Heidenreich? Here. Holiday? Here. Kamstra? Kuehler? Here. Mahoney? Here. Margret? Here. Mays? Here. Moskar? Momini? Patel? Schnepp? Here. Slade? Slater? Here. Tansey? Topete? Here. Amvo? And with that, we do have quorum for the evening. We'll move into the Pledge of Allegiance led by Speaker Mahoney. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll now move into our program section of the evening. We have some fun ones tonight, and we'll kick off with the University Committee on Lectures. Amanda, if you want to take the podium, and I'll ask the senators to please close your laptops to give full attention to our speaker.
Can you hear me? Yay. Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Knief. I am the director of the Lectures program, and I'm an ex officio member of the Committee on Lectures, which is your representation for the committee. I'm here to just give you an update about what's been happening this academic year and kind of answer any questions that you have about how we spend the money, how decisions are made, how speakers are picked, or anything like that. So just as a reminder, we are a joint unit between the university, which pays for the salaries of me and my assistant director, Laura Beatty, and you all, who provide the funding for the speakers. And then we work with many, many groups on campus, units and departments, to bring in additional funding to support speakers and groups. And we work with dozens of student groups to bring in the speakers that they want to. This year, we're on track to do 75 events. I think we have 18 between now and April 20th. We have worked with, I think, 32 student organizations this year, this academic year, and over 50 units and departments, as well as community groups on our speakers. So with that, would anyone like to ask any questions?
Are there any questions for Amanda in the Committee on Lectures?
Really?
If there are no questions, thank you so much for coming in.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
We will now move on to our program from the Student Counseling Services. So if the representative wants to take the podium, we will give you our undivided attention.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Kristen Seaver. I'm the director at Student Counseling Services. I did include some PowerPoint slides. I have a couple of statistics and some information that I wanted to share, so that will be available for you to view as well. I wanted to talk today about Therapy Assistance Online, or TAO, which is an amazing self-help app that student government has helped fund for the past 3 years, and would like to request funding for the following 3 years so that we can continue really building out the Therapy Assistance Online program as a resource for students on campus. So first, a huge thank you for the support that we've had this past 3 years for TAO. It has made a huge difference in students' lives in really supporting mental health and well-being. And I'm really excited about some of the progress we made and the direction that we're headed in the future if we're able to continue to secure funding for TAO. So a quick overview, if anyone is not familiar with TAO, or Therapy Assistance Online, it's a self-help app. It has content on hundreds of different types of topics, sessions that students can do on a variety of mental health topics. So stress, motivation, procrastination, depression, anxiety, relationships, pretty much any topic around mental health or well-being is covered by TAO. It is an evidence-based support for mental health, and it really has some unique benefits, specifically, I think, for college students. It meets the student where they're at, so it's available any time of the day, any day of the week. So if at 2 a.m. a student is feeling like I'm really stressed and I need to find some resources on helping me with sleep or some mindfulness that I can do to help relax, it's there, it's available. It also can be tailored to the needs of the student. So students can do a one-time 20-minute kind of session on learning more about what depression is and some different strategies to help manage depression. They could also go through a 12-week course on cognitive behavioral therapy for depression, which again is evidence-based and can provide similar type of support as if they were attending therapy sessions in person. And so I think it has a lot of great utility on a college campus and with college students specifically. A couple of statistics. We've really been trying to build out and partner on campus to make sure students are aware of this really great resource. So of course, any year that something's new, it's going to take a little bit of time to build traction, but I think we've got some really good momentum going with TAO. We had this academic year so far, have had over 1,000 students registered. We've had almost 2,000 students log in to complete content within TAO. And as you'll see, that his numbers are drastically increased from the first and second year. So you really see, again, the momentum that's building with TAO. Some of the successes we feel like we've integrated TAO into all SCS and many of the unit trainings, outreach, promotion. We've had a significant increase in registration and students using TAO. We've been developing partnerships, for example, with ISSO, student conduct, and finding some ways that we can really integrate it into other departments and spaces. And it really helps students in that moment when they need some support before it might reach a crisis level for them. So the request or ask tonight is to consider continuing to fund TAO for the next 3 years. And like I said, we've really built some momentum, and I have some excitement for what's to come, which I'll share on this next slide of what the opportunities really are for if we continue to invest in TAO for ISU students. So some of the opportunities. Student Health and Wellness Unit has been asked to do the inclusive classroom training that all faculty participate in during the fall semester. So we would be able to reach every single faculty member and the topics on mental health and well-being and integrating that into the classroom. And our hope is to really highlight TAO to help faculty understand the ways that they can integrate TAO into their classroom instruction. We're also really excited about building out partnerships across campus. We recognize that there's some students that may be less likely to utilize our services or to come into student counseling. And so partnering with spaces like the Center, MSA, Military Affiliated Student Center, and really helping make sure that mental health resources are available to all students. In student wellness, there's a new mental health position that is meeting with pretty much everyone on campus to talk about different resources around mental health. And I think they're uniquely situated to really help us continue to increase awareness about TAO and to continue building those numbers that we've already started to increase for students using TAO. And TAO also aligns with the university strategic plan, and so I think it's situated really well to find some ways we can continue embedding TAO into the culture of the university. So thank you. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer those as well.
All right, thank you so much. Are there any questions concerning the TAO app now while we have Dr. Sievert here? Senator Agba.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I was just curious, do you have any student feedback, what have students said about the app and the people who had helped them?
The students that we have heard from have really liked the app for some of the reasons I highlighted. It's really accessible, so they can tailor it to what they're needing, the time of day that they're wanting to get some mental health support, the specific topic they're wanting it on, how long they have to dedicate to it, knowing that things kind of ebb and flow throughout the semester, liking that ability to just tailor it to their specific need at any certain time in the semester. And I think the variety of content is another thing that there's so much content that it can connect to pretty much any type of concern that someone's struggling with. They can find some really good support in the moment. And then the last thing I'd say is that it's really practical. So I think students have liked it. It can give some really specific tools and strategies that support their well-being as well.
Thank you. And I had one more question.
Yeah.
In regards to how do you accommodate for issues that international students or multicultural students may face?
Yeah. How does TAO specifically, or how might we use TAO to help support specific populations?
Both.
Both. So yeah, the TAO content isn't necessarily there's not content dedicated specifically to this is international student content or to any specific group. But that's where I think we have a lot of opportunity to know there's some students that have some experiences around mental health, that we know there's certain populations or student groups that could really benefit from having something that's so accessible. Again, like I had said too, some students aren't going to be likely to walk through our door, whether that be stigma around mental health, some of their, even just scheduling, some of their access to resources. It may not be likely that they're going to come in and see us, but how do we partner with MSA, the center, ISSO, to make sure that students know that this is available and find ways that we can integrate it into those spaces as well.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I yield.
Are there any further questions for our program? If not, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And our final program of the evening, we will review the annuals process with Director Kitt and Vice Speaker Bruick. I'm not going to give you that.
Hello, y'all. Okay, I'll do my explanation of the money first, kind of over the years what we've seen, and then kind of dive deeper into the bills that we see. Obviously, will be projected on the screen, and then after that, we'll have Vice Speaker Bruick come up and explain Robert's rules specifically for the process. We'll see, as of right now, we'll see two budgets, but the Roberts rules to see those budgets are kind of confusing, so he'll explain what we have to do. So these are just numbers from FY20 until FY24, currently in FY23. So if you look at the screen, the total for FY20 was around 1.7 million. In this year specifically, this was the last year that student organizations and sports club council were in the thing together. I did not want to separate those out just so you could see, but the total allocation for FY20 was 1.7. And then for FY21, the total allocation was 1.4. Within this, student organizations and departments received around 1.3, and then sports clubs were 110,000. And then for FY22, the total amount was around $1 million. Student organizations at this point, again, keep in mind these were carryovers from COVID, a lot of carryovers. So we allocated around $900,000 this year to student organizations, including, I think, it was over 100,000, probably over around $200,000 in carryover requests, and then for sports clubs, it was 150,000. And then this year currently, so last year around this time, the total allocation was 1.2. Student organizations were receiving around $1 million. Again, this was still including carryover requests that we have seen since FY21. And then sports clubs were at the highest for this year at 189,000. And then for FY24, which will be for next year, the total allocation is around 1.357. We have seen an increase in student organizations. Obviously, this is the first year since FY21 that student organizations, most of them except for one, did not do a carryover request more than $10,000. The only one was Winterfest, and that was because at the last second, the speaker, Janet McCurdy, backed out. So that was the only carryover request over $10,000 that we saw. So that's just obviously since FY21, that's why there was a significant increase. And then there is a significant decrease in sports clubs because the sports clubs not included in those were the enthusiast organizations that we saw classified last year. So ski and snowboard, all other water sports, they were enthusiasts, so they could not receive funding. And that was around $40,000 that we saw. And I'll kind of explain more as I read the bill to you, kind of what we have seen in the past with student orgs. So if you could go to the big picture bill. So as Speaker Mahoney pulls that up, I'll just explain what the recommendations are. So the recommendations are kind of what we do with asset. So we have to approve the recommendations from student government separately as the big picture bill. Also, if you want to, I will give you permission to look at this on your computers. If you read the recommendations, there are two appendices, Appendix A and Appendix B. Appendix A are the sports clubs that I saw by myself. This is just mainly what we see with this are league fees and transportation. So we have seen an increase in the past few years. Competitions have increased slightly for registration as they do usually. And then again, the transportation is pretty standard of what we saw. So that is Appendix A. And then Appendix B is the student organizations and departments. So within this, this is 1.2. And then the appendix for sports club is 136. So again, Appendix A is sports clubs. Appendix B are student organizations that we see that go through the annual process. And then sports clubs are just one day that I go to. They give their budget to me, and I approve it or not approve it. So as we go into the specific line items for the big picture bill, so the student organization debt reserve account, that is just a projection. So for FY24, we don't allocate anything within that, but that is just what we see for organizations who do have debt contracts with us. If they do go in debt in the university, we have a contract with them and they pay semesterly where they promise to, for example, one organization, it's like a specific X amount each semester, so then they pay that account specifically, give me a report that they do that. So as it is in FY24, we don't actually allocate money in that. We just have, in the beginning of FY24, we just move money from special projects to that so those organizations can get that funding throughout. The next line item is the student activity fee reserve. So the student activity fee reserve is 6% of the projected revenue that we see. So that 144,000 is 6% of the 2.4. So within this is what we have yearly. So if we do kind of dip into the special projects, we do special projects after that, but say there are some organizations that do request more during the year, and if we keep doing that, and their overall budgets are more than we allocated for them, we first dip into the fee reserve, and then after the fee reserve is taken up, that's where we dip into special projects. So just for example, if there was a student organizations as a whole, we go through them, we start allocating them out, people pay their U bills, we get the revenue, and we start with the student activity fee reserve, and then we go through that, and then we go through the special projects. The next one is legislative relations. That is the 10 cents per $44 that each student gives. And then what we fund is the around 6,171, but then it is capped at 15,000. So if there are any, so if say for legislative relations, that funds the Big 12 conference and also Big 12 on the Hill. And if we do go over that $6,000, that's when we can pull from special projects into that to equal out the $15,000. Then the regular allocations account, that is the 1.357. That is, again, the total of student organizations and for sports clubs. That is, if there was any amendments to any thing we see, that is the specific line item that we will change. Everything else stays the same. So if we do change anything, and any organization we do see tonight will come from that specific line item, everything else will stay the same. Senate discretionary is the $30,000. So at the beginning of the fall semester, there's $30,000 within this account. And depending on how the year goes, specifically for fall semester, the finance director has a discretion of adding up to $30,000 into the account in spring semester to equal $60,000 for the whole year. But that is just the fall allocation for that $30,000. And again, over winter break, the finance director does have discretion of increasing it anything until the $60,000. And then the recurring and other obligations account, that $966,000, that's all of our contracts that we will hopefully approve. So in this, I added the changes to contracts we've seen besides the daily, because that's not in that account, and then the new shop account, and then also the TAU increase that we are seeing tonight. Those are all in that as of right now. So if we don't approve those, that number will drop, but that is just the number that we do have to pay, so we cannot decrease that at all. Out of any kind of organizations or departments on campus, that is the amount that cannot change. So please do not do that. Executive niche is $5,000 each year. That is for the president and vice president at their discretion to pay for whatever they want. Usually, annually, this is used for any other fee after the inauguration is done. So inauguration is a specific account, is a specific line item within our operating account that we will see later. And if it is more than that, it usually dips into the executive niche, or if president and vice president want to do anything during the year that they kind of want to do on their own, don't need approval from Senate, they need approval from cabinet, or any other chief officers. They just kind of have a 48-hour period, yes or no. And then if that's approved, do it on their own, and we just spend it as is. The asset account, this is the account that we approved last week. So these are all the contracts that we will see with assets. So that $273,000 is all the contracts that we saw last night, plus around $4,000 for just yearly fees, and then also their administrative assistant. So their administrative assistant gets around $3,000, and then they voted for a $1,000 yearly amount from us, because obviously they meet during January, they meet during the winter break, and we do not meet. So we have seen that if asset needs to have an increase in funding in that moment, all the other sponsors that they have can approve it besides us. So they just wanted to have a slight increase, which I completely understand, to have any fees that they see in the next year, that if they don't, if they're meeting during the time that we don't meet, we can actually give them money instead of them just taking more money from the other partners. So that increase was just obviously a 3% increase yearly for the administrative assistant with the contracts, and then that $1,000 increase was just for fees that they use for meetings for food, kind of just supplies during the winter break that the committee, when they are approving these contracts, use. Events account, that's again, we do not usually do allocations for this. But again, during the year, we just take the money from special projects, put that into it, so we don't budget for this. And again, too, events account is kind of the account currently, as it stands in Workday. It's not at the full amount it should be, but that's just something that COA and finance director and obviously student government knows during the year, that we will put $50,000 into that. And then if there is any, obviously we can't go over, but in Workday, I'll just kind of give you a behind the scenes. As of Workday, the rodeo club bill that we just passed is technically over what is in that account as I see it, but COA will just transfer money from special projects because we all know, and we approved it, that will be at $50,000. And the Green Initiatives Fund, that is at $30,000. So that is what we see since last year. There was, it was increased by twice the amount that it was, so $15,000 to $30,000 by President Ludwig and Vice President Ulrich. So that was the new thing that we saw last year, was an increase after the big picture bill was passed last year. There was a increase from $15,000 to $30,000 for the Green Initiatives Fund, so we had to include that into this. And then special projects, 0, because we don't put money into special projects. It just is carried over from year to year. So that supplemental funding from special projects, that $417,000 is what we will use, hopefully. This is projected to be used for supplemental funding that will go over that $2.49 million. So that 2.495 is the projected revenue that we will see from fall, spring, and summer courses with the projected attendance that the projected numbers that the university has. So those are confidential, but each year, finance director can get the projections for next year from the registrar. I do a calculation, and within all of this, that 2.49 is what we're projected to have. Again, this can increase or decrease depending on the actual population of the students next year. So if there is, if we do under project, then that supplemental funding from special projects will decrease. But if there is an over projection just based on it now, that $417,000 will be less than what we have to pull from special projects, but COA will just pull from special projects during the year. Because as it stands now, we still don't know how much revenue we'll have. The last day we'll know that is June 12th, my birthday. June 12th is when the second session starts for, I think is when the second session starts for summer of 2023. So that is around the last day that COA and we will know the actual income. And then June 30th is obviously the last day of the fiscal year. And also, I know that $417,000 is a lot. If you look in the past, it has been around $100,000 to $200,000. Historically, too, before that, we never used to have money from special projects. But as it stands now, special projects sits at around $1.53 million. I want everyone to know, I do get that, again, that $417 is a lot, but we do not need to sit on a $1.5 million. We have had students pay significant, obviously, we have increases in that each year because that's the rollover account that we see. And also from FY22, year-to-date transfers from FY22 was around $437,000. So those transfers are not included in the supplemental funding. So if we do have around another $437,000 transfers year-to-date from accounts that people don't use that go into special projects, that $417,000 won't even be used. So I get it is a lot, but this is just projections, this is just ifs that we will see next year. And right now, as it stands, COA has been pulling less from special projects than we projected last year. That has been the case in recent years. But I just want you all, it is a lot. We can have discussion on it, but if there are any qualms about any organizations, or if we do want to have specific scaling down, I'll explain that after this. If we do scale down, obviously we can, but that will affect more organizations than you think. It will affect more than you think. There is one organization that has a budget for $15. So if we do a 5% decrease, their budget will be $14.25. Obviously, you could do whatever you want as Senate, but we do have a special projects account for a reason. I know that is our money that we sit on in case of emergencies, but we usually sit at around $1 million. Not 1.5, not anything more, not anything less. COA and I are comfortable. The least we want is around 500,000. So with that, we have $1 million to basically spend. Obviously, we can we still need to have around $1 million, but $500,000 is the lowest we will go. And again, as it stands right now, if we do that $417,000 and we don't have any transfers into it, we won't even touch 1 million. So the biggest thing that we see for scaling down is we haven't scaled down in recent years, but scaling organizations down is we scale down that specific line item. So we will scale down the 1.357 line item by whatever percent. So if there is a motion to scale from 100% to 95%, we'll take the 95% of that 1.357, and we will take out 5% of each budget. Again, I don't know what we'll do with that, because obviously some organizations, bigger organizations like Student Engagement, Sub, Winterfest, they specifically request by the cent. So if they're for smaller things, so for fees for the MU, they're at a specific rate. Any other thing besides entertainment is at a specific rate that they budgeted for and they're requesting. So if there is a 5% decrease, we would have to do specific line items for those bigger budgets that you won't see. It would be more on our end, which is fine. But we want organizations to get money, to get the funding they need, because we have seen an increase in fees across the board. The MU has increased their fees. Vendors have increased their fees. Entertainment has increased their fees, and we haven't. So I get it. It is scary. It is a lot of to think about, a lot to talk about, and we will have that discussion in Senate. But I want you all to know that we do have enough money to do that $417,000 as it stands right now, because there are still transfers that do come in at the end of the year. And if you have any questions during Senate, please yield time to me. I can answer them. And also, as it stands right now, we'll only have one organization besides us coming in. If you do request to have a budget polled and seen, I will be the representative. So if you do want to see a specific club that you did not ask me for, I will be a representative, and I will highly encourage us to keep the budget as is, because there is no representative here that will say which line item they want either zero funded or decreased. So please keep that in mind. You can still do it, but I will be the representative, and I do know all the budgets, and I will be the only one who sees the numbers after. Any questions for me before Vice Speaker Bruick comes up?
Are there any questions for Director Claiborne? I know that was a lot, but we will also, like he said, have several discussion periods on the two bills that we'll be seeing tonight. But are there any questions now? If not, back to you.
All right, Vice Speaker Bruick.
Hey everyone, so Finance Director Claiborne has just vomited a bunch of big, crazy information at you, and I'm here to do a little bit more, just to add on to your mounting stress. So everything that Finance Director Claiborne has talked about has been the finance side, the numbers, money, what's actually being spent on side. What I'm here to talk about right now is how we are actually going to physically deal with the bills tonight that we are seeing. So Speaker Mahoney, if you could pull up the Appendix B for me real quick. Actually, could you go to the recommendations bill first? So this is the annual allocations recommendations bill. That's what we're going to see first, and that's going to basically be the part at the beginning where we set every club's, approve every club's recommended budget from Finance Committee. This bill in particular has a bunch of weird stuff that has to happen if we're going to actually deal with those individual budgets, and so that's what this talk is about. If any of you want to follow along in the Senate rules and bylaws, the rules that I'm drawing all this information from are Senate Rule 1.14, 1.13.3, and 1.13.4. So those are the Senate rules that underlie this process. So let's start at the beginning, and I think the best way for me to do this, rather than just randomly explaining what the motions are or whatnot, is to kind of walk you through the process of what you were wanting to do if you were to want to look at an individual club's budget. So at this very beginning, when we were just looking at this bill and nothing else has happened, what we are debating is, Speaker Mahoney, if you could pull up Appendix B. We are debating, can you scroll, all of these clubs' budgets, and also there's Appendix A, which is Sports Club 1, but you get the idea. All these clubs' budgets at once. If there's an individual club you want to look at, we cannot debate that immediately when we first look at this bill. What has to happen and what's going to happen, what Vice President Ulrichs will ask to happen when we start this bill is ask if anyone wants to divide clubs' budgets out. As Finance Director Claiborne alluded to, there are two organizations that he would like us to look at. One of them is student government, and so I'll use that for the example. So let's say you're at the beginning of the bill and you want to look at student government's budget. You can't just do that automatically because they're all grouped together and we're voting on all of them, up or down, yes or no. So if you want, and what we will do is if you want to look at student government's budget, the motion that will be in order and the motion that will hopefully be made is the motion to divide the question. So what's going to happen with that is you'll make the motion, it'll be voted on, and once that motion is voted on, effectively, not like physically necessarily, but what effectively is going to happen is the vote, this big group of budgets, we're pulling student governments out of that big group together. Once we do that, and once we've done the two that Finance Director Claiborne wants to look at, and any others that you on a whim want to do, I would encourage you not to, but if you guys want to, it's right to look at any club budget as they want. Once we do that, we will have, once we pulled those budgets, we will move back to this big giant bill together and vote on all of the clubs that we have not pulled out. So once you've pulled out student government, you will then vote on whether to approve or to not deny all these other clubs' budget recommendations. Once that happens, we'll vote yes or no, ideally yes, and once that is passed, Senate will immediately recess for 10 minutes. That's in the rules. We have to do that, and it allows Finance Director Claiborne and the Finance Committee to make the necessary preparations they have to do to then move into the second phase of this bill. And in the second phase of this bill, we will now look at the individual two budgets that we pulled out. So, Speaker Mahoney, if you could move to the OFP. So we will now be, so let's say you're trying to take student governments, you've made the motion to divide the question, you've pulled student government's budget out, and now you have approved all the other budgets. There's been a 10-minute recess, and now we're coming back to look specifically at student government's budget. Once Speaker Mahoney gets it pulled up, we will see what it looks like. So that's going to, and that will be, the budget that student government is going to have for the next fiscal year. And it looks like that. And once we have that, if there's anything you want to do, let's say hypothetically, you think the speaker doesn't deserve a scholarship. I know it's pretty fair, he's kind of lame. Let's say you want to zero fund the scholarship. You would think, normally how we do bills, you can just make a motion to amend that and that's all well and good. That's not how it works with annual allocations. Once we're at this stage, we can only debate the motion, the organization's budget as a whole. In order for us to look at individual line items, there's a motion and it's 1.13.3, and that is the motion to extend debate to line items, and that allows us to discuss the individual line items of a club's bill. Before you can actually look at these individual line items and say, I don't like the speaker's scholarship, I don't think that the vice speaker deserves a parking pass, all reasonable opinions, you have to make that motion. I know that's technical, I know that sounds kind of arbitrary, but that's how it is. Once that happens, you still cannot amend the individual allocation. The thing that then is going to happen is we can there's three things that we can do once we pulled this club's budget and we started looking at line items and whatnot. We can either approve the recommendations as is, which is just say all these numbers look fine, great, send them off and they're approved, and that's that. You can vote down the recommendations, vote to deny them, which effectively zero funds the organization and gives them none of our money. So maybe ideally you don't want to do that either unless you really don't like student government, in which case you could do that. But if you want the individual allocations in each line item to be changed, we need to vote to refer or recommit the recommendations to the Finance Committee. So when that happens, Finance, what we'll end up doing and what we should do and what always happens is we will recess Senate again and give Finance Committee some time to look at their recommendations, hear what our debate and discussion was about what we didn't like. So if we didn't like the speaker scholarship, why we didn't, and what we think it should be. And then they can amend their recommendations. We'll then come back to Senate and be back on the same motion. If the Finance Committee amends it to be what you like, to zero fund this speaker scholarship, great, and we can just approve the recommendations and move on. If they haven't, we still cannot personally, as Senate, amend the line items. If the recommendations from Finance Committee are still not to your satisfaction, we would need to again vote to recommit those recommendations to Finance Committee, and we need to then recess again, and they would take their time. Once that happens again, we would come back. Now in this situation, hopefully Finance Committee has gotten the hint and has changed it to the recommendation to something that's acceptable to Senate. But if they haven't, if they feel strongly about the recommendation that they've given, Senate now will have the ability, after these two recommitments to Finance Committee, to amend the line items in the budget ourselves. So that is basically the process for it. It's very complicated and it's kind of hard to explain. And then once that happens, we'll do that for that divided budget, and then we'll hopefully eventually either approve or deny the budget. We'll move on. Since there's two organizations, we'll repeat that with the other organization until we've either approved or denied the allocation, and then we'll move on to the big picture bill. And that is the bill that Finance Director Claiborne went through with all the events accounts, all the accounts there with all the numbers and the special projects funding and whatnot, and then we will approve that, and that will complete the annuals process. I believe that's all I have. So, I mean, that was a lot of information, and it's hard to understand. I understand, so if you have questions, please ask them to me. You can ask them to me. We're going to have a mandatory 10-minute recess, so if you have any confusion in the meantime, ask me then again. Just anytime tonight, if you have questions, ask them to me, and I will try and explain what this weird Robert's Rules mess is. So at this time, I'll turn over to any questions you have right now.
Are there any questions for Vice Speaker Bruick? If not, I do have one for you. I just want for you to explain the point of information in a parliamentary inquiry that all of our senators can use at any time.
Sure thing. So the point of information in the parliamentary inquiry, those are just standard Robert's Rules motions, and you can use them at any time. So what the point of information is if you're ever confused about what's going on, just in any context of anything that's going on during a bill, without using one of your standard speaking privileges and without, having to take any special steps, you just need to signal to the chair, and the way that many of us do it is just to say, when the floor is open and no one is currently speaking, say, Mr. President, to get the chair's attention, and then ask for a point of information. You can also just say, point of information. That works too. And that then, once the chair recognizes you for your point of information, you can ask your question, and just ask it in any way that you see fit, that you think will get what information you're trying to get, whatever response you're trying to get. So that's always in order. You can always do that. And if you're ever confused, that is a tool you have. And it's your privilege as a member of this body to always use it. So you're always free to do it. Don't be afraid. This is a really confusing process. Please use it if you feel confused. The parliamentary inquiry is effectively that same question, but on a question of Robert's Rules law, basically. So if you're confused as to what we're voting on, or how we're supposed to vote, or how we are supposed to what motion you're supposed to make at a given time and how it works, you would use the parliamentary inquiry in the same way as you would use a point of information. So you would get the attention of the chair and say that you have a parliamentary, oh my Lord, I'm not going to say it anymore. The parliamentary inquiry. You will say that you have that and ask a question. If Vice President Ulrich knows, he can answer. If he's not sure, Speaker Mahoney, Vice President Ulrich, and myself will confer and come up with an answer based on our knowledge and reading of Robert's Rules and our Senate Rules of Order, and give that information to you to the best of our ability. And those are, again, things you can use at any time. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Anything else?
If there's not, thank you, Director Claiborne and Vice Speaker Bruick, for presenting on how those bills will work. We will now move into open forum, which shall serve as an opportunity for students to speak about issues relevant to the student body. If any student is here this evening for open forum, you may approach the podium at this time. If there are no students here for open forum this evening, we'll move into adopting the agenda for this evening. Is there a motion to do so?
Mr. President, I move to add Senators Burks, Frencher, Tansey, and Vo to the roll. And Eisma.
Are there any objections to adding Senators Eisma, Vo, Burks, Frencher, and Tansey to the roll? Seeing no objections, they all shall be added. Move back into adopting the agenda for the evening. Vice Speaker Bruick.
One sec. I move to amend tonight's agenda to add 2022-3-023 SA, renewing the lectures contract, to the bottom of new business.
Can you repeat that, the enumeration there?
2022-3-023 SA.
And then what was the bill again? I'm writing it down so I have it.
The title is Renewing the Lectures Contract.
All right, is there any objection to adding the renewing lectures contract to the bottom of new business? Seeing no objections, the agenda shall be amended. Move back on to the motion as a whole. Is there any objection to adopting the agenda for the evening? Seeing no objections, that the agenda shall be approved. We'll move into approval of the minutes from last meeting. Is there a motion to approve? Is there any objection to approving the minutes of last meeting? Seeing no objections, they shall be approved. We'll move into committee reports, kicking it off with Rules and Speaker Mahoney.
So, unfortunately, Rules didn't actually get to meet on Monday. We tried. We didn't make quorum because we had 2 people out of town and another person had other engagements. So we didn't make quorum, so we didn't get to meet, which is great because there's so much on our plate right now.
Are there any questions for the Rules Committee? Seeing no questions, move into Finance with Director Claiborne.
Hello again. You're going to see a lot of me tonight. Every bill pertains to me. So we had obviously finance last night. Funding women's rugby was sent favorably. The solar seating bench was sent no bias. Shop cookbooks was sent no bias. Funding Jack Trice Character Award was sent no bias. That is after the motion to send to Senate unfavorably was removed because there wasn't a second. I'll just explain that. There was some discussion within finance that there was a member of finance committee who was not comfortable using student dollars to pay for a scholarship for other students that not everyone can specifically apply for. If you do have any questions during the actual bill about that, please let me know. Funding the big picture bill was sent favorably, of course. The TAO contract was sent favorably. The shop contract was sent favorably. And then the SUV Green Initiatives Fund was approved in committee. That was specifically for SUV down the road. They're doing a compost pilot program where they are taking, because correct me if I'm wrong, Senator Anglican, Freddie took one of their things. Someone took something. Yeah, someone took something of theirs. So they want to obviously add that back. They want to have specific compactors around SUV and the signage for that. And also they want to have buckets for residents. So if residents do want to compost in their apartments, they have the opportunity to get a bucket from them and compost during the year. And then obviously every bill tonight, as I said, is pertaining to finance. So if you do have any questions relating to anything, please let me know. The whole big picture bill, I'll be standing over that podium. If you want to grill me with questions, do that. That's okay. If you have any questions about anything, please let me know. It is a lot of money, a lot of Robert's rules, a lot of understanding of what needs to happen within finance and how we work. But again, please hopefully approve it. I've done this whole year for this one bill. Actually, 2 bills. So again, if you do have any discussion, please let me know. I think that's it. So, thank you. Any questions?
Are there any questions for the Finance Committee? Seeing no questions, we'll move on to PR with Director Haas.
Hi, everyone. So PR is really busy. We have a lot of projects. One project is the committee showcase. If I think I still have 3 more committees that I need to go to, but thank you for all the other committees for being so welcoming and letting me take a picture. And then we have the chief officer and president and VP-elect interviews. That's a project that all the members of PR are working on right now. And that will be in the newsletter. We are planning to have like an end of the year or end of the semester recap newsletter. So we're excited about that. We're still working on our business card project. We have our gaming tournament, but we changed the date for that, so it is no longer Tuesday the 4th. Instead, we are thinking more of Tuesday the 11th for that event. And then for outreach, we have Wolf and Wellness and After Dark this Friday. We have a indoor game event on Monday. I'm pretty sure, SI, are you hosting that? Okay, yes, and I'm sure Senator Mays will talk more about that. So please sign up for those events on the team's MIS and let Sundar know when you complete those credits. And then for the podcast, the State of Things released their 9th episode last week, and they are recording tomorrow. And then lastly, we need somebody to do the Senate recap after Senate tonight. So please let me or Ethan know if you're interested in helping with that. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the Public Relations Committee? Seeing no questions, we'll move on to diversity with Senator Frencher.
Hello. So first, I just want to say that our funding event was successful last week. So now we can focus on our International Student Town Hall. So first, the date for that will be April 13th in the Student Innovation Center. We are working with risk management to add the food vendor to the list. And then we are sending out invites to professors for the event. And then the theme that we've decided for the town hall is cooperation through collaboration. So we hope that that will be a success like our last event. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the Diversity Committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to student initiatives with Senator Mays.
Hello. So I'm just going to give you guys the updates on the events that we have coming up. So if you're able to attend, please do. So Wolves and Wellness is this Friday, so in a couple days. If you still haven't done the the Food Safety 101 stuff, unfortunately, you're probably not going to be able to get signed up for the class and complete it by the time the event happens, but you can still help at the event by passing stuff out. It's going to be this Friday in front of Parks Library, and we're going to be out there from 9:30 until noon. If you want to be there when the dogs are there, they're specifically going to be there from, I believe, 10 to 11 o'clock-ish. I don't know if the ferret will be there. I hope it will be. We'll see. But yeah, it's a really good event. We're going to have games and stuff too. So please stop by. Please tell people about it. And there's going to be free donuts. So if you just need to stop by and get some breakfast, feel free to do that too. And then the indoor game event is going to be on Monday. So that's going to be from 7 to 10:30 in East State Gym, or East Gymnasium of State Gym, I guess. So please, if you're able to come to that, do, and invite anybody who can, because obviously with game events like that, the more people, the more fun it actually is for everybody involved. So advertise it when you can. I'm going to try to send the graphic in the group chat just because it hasn't been posted quite yet, just because we got approved just recently to be able to advertise for the event. But that's going to be in the group chat, so send that around. If you invite anybody, I'm pretty sure guests can still get into State Gym, but they have to pay. But otherwise, if you have student friends who want to attend, they need to have their ID in order to get in, because you just have to go into State Gym and then go to the gymnasium that we're going to be in specifically. So just remind anybody that you invite of that. Otherwise, yeah, I don't really have anything else. I guess I'll have more summaries of the events next week. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the Student Initiatives Committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to Local Affairs with Director Eaton.
Hi, everybody. Local affairs did not meet this week, but my biggest update is that next week, pending City Council approval, will be our joint meeting with City Council. It'll be in this room at 5 p.m. I just have to wait for approval that they're able to make it.
Are there any questions for the Local Affairs Committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to sustainability with Senator Director Vanderkamp.
There we go. So I don't have anything. As we know, we're kind of wrapping up student government things for this legislative session with the next couple weeks. But with that, we have seen a lot of Green Initiatives Fund applications in the past month. We've probably had 4 or 5. So if there's any last minute lingering ones that you know of, or some friends or people watching this live stream, just please tell them to have those in by the end of next week, just so we can guarantee that they can get funding if that's applicable. But otherwise, I have no other comments.
Are there any questions for the Sustainability Committee? Seeing none, we'll hear from Director Everest and the Health and Wellness Committee.
All right. As usual, my committee has a lot of projects, and I'm going to update you on every single one of them. The first, not really project, but announcement is the Out of Darkness Walk, which is the suicide prevention walk, is on April 29th. Please, please, please create a team page and join our team. You do have to create a fundraising page. You do not have to raise money. It's a free event. Please come, show your support. Student government is all going to walk together. So if you get a chance, and encourage at-larges, and other people are more than welcome to come and join our team as well. This evening, we are going to see the TOW app. Obviously, Kristen gave a great presentation, so please have some good discussion on that. You asked some fantastic questions. And then we're also going to see the Cyclone Support Funding Bill. So that's that website that Senator Kuehler and I have been working with Student Wellness and the Iowa State Daily to make a one-stop shop for all of those resources. So please look that over, ask some good questions. Looking forward to seeing that. As for the committee projects, the SciRide ad for the 24/7 telecounseling is in the works of getting funding. We expect to be able to send that through to SciRide starting tomorrow, and then hopefully see that up in April. The food drive at inauguration, if you are willing and able, please plan on bringing a couple canned items to inauguration. Those will be donated to SHOP. And then something I just found on social media, the Sloss House now has a resource room. So they have partnered with SHOP, and they are now have some food items there, some menstrual products, which you all know are my favorite, some diapers and family products, and then some gender affirming resources. So binders, undergarments, things like that. So if you or anyone you know are looking for those gender affirming resources, send them to the Sloss House. It's open Monday through Thursday, 10 to 3. That's it. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Director Everest and the Health and Wellness Committee? Seeing none, we'll now hear comments from the Judicial Branch.
Hey everyone. Not a whole lot of updates, but as of 3:05 today, the court received petitioners' briefs from the parties involved in the upcoming trial. So we're looking to proceed with that at 6 o'clock on Tuesday. And other than that, not much else.
Are there any questions for our Judicial Branch? Seeing none, we'll now hear comments from our advisors.
How about this? Yes, on? Okay. No, the only thing I had to say, I think hopefully all of you, if your information is correct in the MIS, should have gotten an email from me, I think yesterday. All the days in this week have run together. But anyway, I am just soliciting some feedback on your advisor, which helps me be a better supervisor for that person. So if you could take that survey sometime in the next 2 weeks, that would be great. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Not too many updates. Don't forget the Student Organization Awards are open, so please take a look at those if you haven't. Beyond that, if you are working on a project, event, plan, anything you're trying to accomplish between now and April 14th, please set up a meeting with me. I want to make sure that you are able to get everything you need, so either to get that accomplished or so we can start working on maybe some transition documentation so you're able to take that on into the future. Or honestly, probably both. Please, if you want to grab me after the meeting for my email address, or it's also on the MIS, please feel free to send me an email. If not, my bookings is always open. So yeah. Oh, final note. I'm saying one too many times today. Please pay attention during all of the bills tonight. Just make sure that you're really listening and then focusing and being kind of present in the moment, following the bills if you have them up on your computer, but really listening to each of your fellow senators. So that is my final point.
Are there any comments or questions for our advisors? Seeing none, we'll now hear comments from the executive branch.
Few short updates this week. State of things, just want to share that as Director Haas said, the John Lawrence episode is out. John Lawrence is the Director of Extension Outreach here at the university. So go give that a listen. Tomorrow we will be interviewing Barbara Neal from SciRide. So this will definitely be my favorite episode of the year. But that'll be a great discussion. And then I also want to share for all of our radio listeners out there that on Mondays from 5 to 6 p.m. you can listen to the State of Things on Cure Radio. So if you're interested in that newfangled technology, go give it a listen there. From there, just want to remind everyone that inauguration is April 14th at 6 p.m. in the Memorial Union in the Great Hall. I would really like it if you were all there, so please try and be there. And speaking of inauguration, I sent you all an email earlier this week regarding the awards that will be given out at inauguration. Please, please, please nominate a fellow member of student government for those awards. The details about them were sent to you earlier this week in an email. If you didn't get that email because you aren't on the listserv or you just lost it, let me know and I will give you those details. I think it's really important to recognize the hard work that a lot of people have put in this year. And so I would like for everyone to try and find someone in this organization that they'd like to recognize and nominate for those awards. And then lastly, just want to talk about the funding bills, the two contracts. If you have any questions about the TAO contract, you can refer them to me, Director Everest, or Kristen from Student Counseling Services. And with the SHOP contract, we actually have some representatives of SHOP here, so you can ask them any questions, but also Director Claiborne and myself are also very aware of the terms of that contract. And then if you have any questions about the Jack Trice Character Award, I've been sorting a lot of that out with the ISU Foundation, so I am happy to answer any questions that may arise.
Are there any questions for our executive branch? If I may add one thing, the Mission and Cardinal Guild Awards close this Sunday at 11:59, and so you have until Sunday 11:59 to get those in. But hearing no questions for our executive branch, we'll jump into the meat and potatoes of tonight, starting with External Matters 2022-3-020F, funding women's rugby with Senator Tansey.
Would the representative approach the podium?
But their competition is the 1st, and today, right now, as we speak, is it 7 o'clock? Yep, it's their last practice. So obviously, don't want them to have to worry about missing practice if it's their last practice before their competition. And then also, she said that she could come after. Don't really want her to, because I want her to be clean after she practices, because she said she will be muddy. So, and I also don't want mud. Yeah, I don't want to track mud in. But this is pretty standard bill. So for the competition, their registration fee for their whole team is $700. So half of that is the $350. Obviously, registration refund is 1/2, either per person or per one registration fee. So that's what they're requesting, is half of the registration fee for their upcoming competition on Saturday. Yeah. Any questions? Don't know where it is. So
the floor is open for any questions or comments on the bill as a whole. Question has been called for and second. Is there any objection to ending debate now? Seeing no objections, Senator Tansey, closing comments. Seeing none, we'll move into a vote. Being a funding bill, we will be doing a roll call. When I say your name, please say yes, no, or abstain. Agba. Yes. Becker. Yes. Braun. Yes. Bruick. Yes. Burks. Yes. Dre. Yes. Eisma. Yes. Engelken. Yes. Frencher. Yes. Gopa, Hackbarth, Heidenreich, Holiday, Kuehler, Mahoney, Margaret, Mays, Schnepp, Slater, Tansey, Topete, and Vo. With a vote of 22 to 0, the motion carries. We'll now move into 2022-3-022F, funding solar seating bench on campus with Senator Engelken.
Hello. So this is a bill to fund a picnic table. I sent you guys all the information about it. I am going to ask for Engineers for a Sustainable World to go up to the podium so everyone can ask their questions. So that is it, for me at least. So I'm going to ask you to just tell everyone what it's about, why it would be beneficial to campus, and also mention where it's going to be and how the logistics will play out.
Everyone, my name is Hallie. I'm here on behalf of Solar Centric, which is a part of Engineers for a Sustainable World. We want to put a solar-powered picnic table on by the sand volleyball courts, which is in the Southeast Recreational Complex. It will provide shade and seating and charging. The main goal of our project is to increase the renewable energy sources used on campus. We think this will be a really great opportunity for people to get that close interaction with solar energy, and it will increase the interest in renewable sources, which will hopefully lead to more renewables on campus in the future. We're requesting a total of $36,000, which covers the cost of the table as well as any materials needed for installation and that kind of thing. I also want to mention that we can apply for a 40% government rebate for the table, which will decrease the total cost by $10,000 eventually, but we will need that $36,000 upfront. Any questions?
All right, Senator Engelken, do you yield?
I yield.
All right, the floor is now open for discussion. We'll start with Senator Agba.
Hi. I just had a few questions, I guess. Is there any plan for maintenance or vandalization or anything like that?
So maintenance and that kind of thing will be taken over by rec services, so they will have that. The regular maintenance is very limited. It will just include keeping the solar panels clean and the surfaces, and you really only have to clean the solar panels twice a year at most. So yeah.
Okay. And so I saw that it was it's being sent by Spotlight Solar.
Mm-hmm.
Are they affiliated with ISU or ESW at all?
No.
Okay. And as I don't see any funding on your part, were there any plans for fundraising for ESW?
Yeah, so we have been in contact with the companies outside of the school, just kind of seeing if they may be interested in providing funding. Our goal was to start here and see where we can get, and then reach out to those companies again in the future.
I yield.
Senator Hackbarth.
Hi, yeah. Can you explain the rationale behind putting this out at the sand volleyball courts and not in a more high traffic area?
So the location was determined by FP&M and Rec Services. We got a lot of resistance, and there's a lot of red tape on where you can place things in Central Campus. You really can't add anything there. We really wanted to place it in front of Sictor, but we would have to get approval from all the buildings around Sictor, and once we started asking around to see if we could place it there, they were basically just stop. So this is really the only place that we can place it now, but hopefully once this project is successful, we will be able to be hey, we can actually do this, and let's put it somewhere else as well.
Speaker Mahoney.
So, while I definitely understand the want and benefit to increasing students' familiarity and have them interact more with solar-powered materials and kind of introducing more of that renewables on campus. I think this is a lot of money for what is ostensibly a single picnic table. And with it being that far off campus, I think you're kind of undermining your own goal there of increasing, kind of the awareness with it. I mean, we already do have a bunch of solar. We just funded $53,000 towards solar-powered trash compactors. I think that is a better use of kind of the renewable, pushing sort of that knowledge and familiarity with renewables and solar energy. I just don't see it tenable spending $36,000 on what is a picnic table, especially when we're seeing other bills tonight where we are dipping into bigger funds because we just need to spend that kind of money.
Do you yield? Yeah. Senator Gopa.
So what kind of problem are you solving with this picnic table? I don't see why we're even putting it out there. Like, what's the solution you're trying to solve?
So like I said before, we're just trying to bring more renewable energy sources to campus. Currently, only 7% of energy used on campus comes from renewables. So we're just hoping to increase that number and get more people interested.
Is it really efficient though? 16 more power cables or power charging sources, is that going to add up onto that 7%?
Not necessarily, but we're just hoping that this project will be the start of adding even more renewable sources to campus.
Yeah, this is $36,000. This is a lot of money. Can we get it without the shelter?
Like the panels on top, that's where the solar energy comes from. That's where the solar panels are.
Okay, then what's the bench for?
To increase seating.
Yeah, why isn't it like all together? Why is it all like separate?
It's not. It's like all together with one picnic table, and then the solar panels are connected to the sides and overhanging.
So it's technically not like a shelter, it's just like a hut kind of thing?
It looks like this.
Oh. I'm sorry, I didn't know what it was. I thought it would be like a house kind of thing because when you say shelter, I thought it'd be a house.
Yeah, that's just like the name of it that the company refers to it as, but it's essentially just a solar-powered picnic table.
So you said there's a 40% rebate happening on it. How would you return that money back? This would be a question for Finance Director Claiborne.
So how funding works is we allocate specific money. So if this does pass, we would do the X amount that is in the bill. But if they do not pay for that $10,000, that $10,000 wouldn't come out of our account. It would just come back to us at the end of the fiscal year. But we would still allocate money towards it. So it won't be used, but that amount in this bill will be given to them. Just that amount won't be used, if that makes sense.
Okay. Where exactly is it going? Near the volleyball courts? Is there a path to it? I I saw there's a part for the wheelchair access. Is there a path for the people who use wheelchairs to get on?
Yeah, so we're going to install a concrete pad which will connect right to the sidewalks that are already there. So it'll be good access.
Okay, that's it. Thank you. I yield.
Senator Becker.
Okay, so I just wanted to throw out my opinion. I agree that the bench is cool. And like in front of the Student Innovation Center or in front of the electrical engineering building, like would make sense, maybe worth the money. But like the outdoor rec stuff is so far, like it is not walking distance. So I just really struggle to believe that we would get our money's worth out of this when even like the recreation employees take the recreation car out there. Like this is not accessible to students. I yield.
Senator Slater.
So I have a couple questions. First, you said the original plan was for this to go by sector, I think you said?
Well, we wanted
Yes,
it to, but
if you want,
yeah.
What was the concern by Sictor and the other buildings? Because you said they just kind of shut it down.
Yeah, so basically when we started like contacting the buildings around Sictor to be like, hey, can we put this here where you're gonna be able to see it? We were contacted by FP&M and they were basically just like, stop sending those emails. Excuse me. And I don't know, there's just a lot of red tape around campus on like where you can put specific things, so yeah.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. You said the solar panels, I think you said like twice a year, just the checkups on it. What would be the process if one of them did get damaged? What would be the cost?
I'm not sure the exact cost of like a specific solar panel, but that's something that we would just have to take into account.
Yeah, other than that, I just kind of share the same concerns other people have, but yeah, I yield.
Is there any objection to adding Senator Momini to the roll? Seeing no objections, they shall be sat. Senator Tansey.
Yeah, I would just like to echo Speaker Mahoney and Senator Becker's remarks. It's a cool idea, cool bench, just not for $36,000. And again, the location is an issue for me, so I will be a no vote.
Vice Speaker Bruick.
First, I'll begin by moving the Finance Committee amendments.
Is there any objection to, well, I suppose we'll move into discussion on the Finance Committee amendments.
Call the question.
Question has been called for and seconded. Is there any objection to adopting the Finance Committee amendments? Seeing no objections, they shall be adopted.
Then I guess I'll first turn to Finance Director Claiborne. So this is $36,000 coming out of Senate discretionary. How much is currently in Senate discretionary? If you can ballpark it even.
Senate discretionary?
Yes.
Well, I did not see that. No, it's okay. Yeah. No. So if you want to move to change to special projects, I did not see that, and neither did Senator Ankokin. It's okay. Yeah, I didn't catch that.
All right. Well then, Mr. President, I move to amend this phrase Senate discretionary to special projects, and I'd ask the unanimous consent of the body to do that without any other process, please.
There's been a unanimous consent asked upon Senate to strike Senate discretionary and substitute with special projects. Is there any objection to doing so? Seeing no objections, the amendment shall be adopted.
Sweet. Yeah, 36,000 was a lot for Senate discretionary. Did not fit in my mind.
Yeah, I read special projects, not Senate discretionary. So sorry, that's my fault too.
No worries. And then I'll turn to you. Thanks for coming today. I really appreciate you being here and telling us about this opportunity. I think this is an interesting. Certainly, this bench is very cool and interesting. But I did have a couple questions, just about. This isn't a huge deal, but when I look at this image of this little shelter and bench and this whole unit, it looks like to me, and I may be misunderstanding it visually, but it looks like it's all one unit. But then the way we're funding it is the shelter with the table, and then the bench seating and whatnot. Why is it like that? Is there like interchangeable parts of seating? How does that work, basically?
Yeah, so like the funding that like the way that the company breaks it down, like you have to specifically say like which parts of the table you want, because it can come like without the table, it can come with just benches, or it can come with just the table. So basically you just have to check all the boxes and say like what parts of the table that you want, and you order that specifically.
Gotcha. And then I feel like I could probably understand what winter kit and earth anchor kit are, but could you just explain like those? So are those like for weatherproofing the shelter, and then the earth anchor kit, is that just having it set? Or?
Yeah, so the anchors are just like bolts to fasten it to the concrete pad, and the winter kit will allow the solar panels to warm themselves when it gets cold, so they can still function.
Okay. And then one last question is this small sign on the side with the graphics. What do you think you're going to put on that if we were to fund that?
So that would either be to promote like our club and talk about more about solar centric and Engineers for a Sustainable World, talk about more about the bench itself, or if we get funding from outside companies, it would be to promote their companies.
And then would you be, a follow-up question to that is, would you be willing to put, if we were to fund the student government on there as well?
Yeah, of course.
Great. I figured, but gotta ask. I yield.
With that, move on to Senator Kuehler.
I unfortunately think I am going to have to agree with the sentiments of Speaker Mahoney and several other members of this body. However, I'm not going to spend time reiterating that. I guess I wanted to kind of give you, as the representative, an opportunity to kind of respond to that. And I guess I'm also curious, if we were to vote no on this, what would the effects be of that?
So I just first of all want to reiterate that we will be getting the 40% rebate from the government, which will decrease the cost. It's going to be $26,000 instead of $36,000, which yeah, it's still a lot, but we just think it's going to be a really great educational tool to get more people interested in renewable energy, which is really important and a sustainable energy source for helping combat environmental issues such as climate change, which I'm sure we're all aware of. And if we were not able to get any funding from student government, it would just set us back a little bit, but we would still reach out to other sources for funding because we would still like to move forward with the project.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. I yield.
Senator Ogba.
Hi again. I just wanted to, I guess, go off of what Vice Speaker Baruch had said about the winter kit, you know, highlighting the durability against like severe weather. Just for my own curiosity, like in the case of like emergency, do you have any plan for like storage or anything like that?
Not necessarily, but we do know that it can withstand very harsh winds and snow loads. So any weather type like that, it should be okay. But for things like tornadoes, I'm not sure.
Okay. I yield.
Senator Mays.
So I really appreciate you guys coming tonight, and I just want to ask if you guys were looking into or interested in any other types of solar power projects, just because I know there is potential of this bill getting rejected tonight, and I don't want you guys to give up on the idea of trying to get funding either through us or through anyone with like solar power projects, because like you said, having more solar powered things on campus brings an initiative for both other groups and for the university in general to fund more solar power projects. So I was just curious if you guys were looking into any other things other than the bench that could be implemented either cheaper or in ways that could be, I guess, not more sustainable, like in that idea, but more sustainable, like money-wise, like maybe cheaper projects, if you have any.
So this is like the most developed project we have right now, but we are brainstorming ideas for the future because, I mean, that's what our club does. Like, we just try to get more solar powered stuff on campus. So yeah, we won't give up.
Of course, thank you. I was just curious. I yield.
Senator Dre.
Hi, thank you for coming out tonight. I just wanted to ask if you guys had any like agreements with the university, or the university knew more about having insurance on something like this.
I'm not sure.
Okay, because I was just thinking like withstanding wind and snow is great, but my mind immediately jumps to hail and different damages that can come that are pretty common in Iowa, and so that was just my 2 cents.
Senator Dre, do you yield? All right, do you withdraw your motion? Senator Holliday.
I think we've all kind of came to the agreement that this is a fantastic idea, and it has a lot of great promotion work with it in regards to sustainability. And we've all kind of agreed that the $36,000 is a little overpriced looking at it. And like you've mentioned, if we were to fund or not fund, you could move forward looking at outside donors. So this is a suggestion for the rest of the Senate, could we consider maybe striking certain line items out and only funding part of it instead of the entirety of the 36,000? If anyone would like to consider or discuss that, I yield.
Senator Hackbarth.
Right now. Okay. So my particular issue with this bill is not the $36,000 that we have to spend. I think it's worth it because I'm very passionate about renewable energy. My biggest problem is the location of it. I don't think we are going to get our worth, our promotional. I love the idea of the bench. I love the merit of this idea. I love the mission of it, but the location of it is the issue. If we could perhaps push this project back a year and work with Iowa State to get it a place on actual campus where, it's over by the Student Innovation Center and we put more time into this about getting it in a decent location, I'd be 100% willing to throw in the money. It's just a location for me, personally. And with that, I yield.
Speaker Mahoney.
I yield my time to Director Claiborne.
Director Vanderkamp. I think that this would be relevant to bring up a conversation that President Ludwig and Jaden and I also had with FP&M regarding solar panels and just everything on campus to provide a little bit more context on this. Specifically, we have a variety of solar paneled lights are all around campus, and the kind of perspective that FP&M currently has is that we don't want to sponsor or they are very hesitant sponsoring things on campus, one, because of the aesthetic value of they want to make sure we are very lucky to have a campus where you don't feel like it's concrete jungle, and they want to stay in that. Also, when it comes to powering, that's a big conversation that they have specifically of, is there a place where we can't get power out there? That's typically when they consider panels first, because they are, as we can see, very expensive, and it's very hard to do that. So with that, I do think that this is, again, it is a very large sum to consider, but I do think it's important to recognize that probably if it wasn't for a bill like this, there's probably no chance that FP&M would ever explore this area. So that's something I also want us to consider when it comes to other initiatives on campus, for example, the solar trash compactor, things like that. We have eaten a lot of cost, and I will admit that that's a lot on us to start with, but that also does kind of open the gateway to, is this going to have a lot of traction? If not, then yes, it is a lot of money that we lost, but also, as we've realized, special projects does have a lot of money right now, and I would consider that if there is a time, probably this year or some of the years in the future are probably the best time for us to do that moving forward, before that kind of account kind of goes back to normal after COVID.
All right, with Speaker Mahoney yielding, is there any further questions or comments on the motion as a whole to fund the solar seating bench on campus? Question has been called for. In second, is there any objection to ending debate now? Seeing no objection, Senator Engelken, closing comments. No closing comments, we'll move into a vote. Being a finance bill, we will do roll call. When I say your name, please say yes, no, or abstain. Agba. Becker. Braun. Bruick. Burks. Dre. Eisma. Engelken. Frencher. Gopa. Hackbarth. Heidenreich. Holiday. Kuehler. Mahoney. Margaret. Mays. No. Momini. No. Schnepp. Slater. No. Tansey. No. Topete.
Yes.
Envo. And Senator Kuehler. With With a vote of 5 to 15 to 3, and this motion requiring 2/3 of Senate, the motion fails. We'll now move on to 2022-3-021 SA, establishing a contract with SHOP, and Vice Speaker Bruick.
Hey everyone, so this is the shop contract that was, like we said, was on first read last week. We're seeing it now. A little bit about the contract is it's for 5 years. It would expire in 2028. It consists of a total of $70,000 total funding. $46,000 of that is just for food, the general food funding. $12,000 of that is for international food, and $12,000 of that is for hygiene products. That's pretty much all the big things in it. You can look at it yourself. You have the link, and it's up on the screen. But with that, I will yield to the representatives from SHOP if they have anything they want to say about the contract and all this and how it'll help them.
Hi, my name is Natalie. I am one of the co-presidents of the shop. I just want to say we've seen exponential growth at the shop within the past year, and we are just looking to better serve the student population. There are, based on the previous surveys done by Iowa State, 33% of students on Iowa State's campus are food insecure. So this funding would be a huge help in increasing our supply, especially diversifying our supply as well.
All right, the floor is now open for any discussion that the body may have on the motion as a whole. Senator Keeler.
Hi, thank you guys for coming out tonight. So my question, it's not really anything specific about funding, but it's great that you guys are growing exponentially. Like, I hope you guys really do continue to grow. I guess I'm just wondering if you have any broad concerns about if you continue to grow, would the amount in this contract constrain that growth in any way?
I don't think that would constrain our growth. We have other sources of income that help supplement with what we're already purchasing from the food bank and then with our Fairway purchases to stock the pantry. And we are always doing outreach events and working with departments around Iowa State to increase our funding to support that need.
Okay, thank you very much. I yield.
Senator Schnepp.
Kit, I think this might be more of a question. Oh, did he leave?
He's right there.
Oh, sorry. This might be a question for you, Kit. But you know how last year ISU Daily, how we had to kind of amend things because the population increased and decreased? Is that a case where this could happen here at all? Or is it going to be flat out the same for 5 years, I guess?
That's for President Ludwig.
Yeah, there is no population metric in this contract. It'll be a flat 70 for the full 5 years.
Got it. Thank you.
Senator Heidenreich.
Hi, just this might be a slightly unfair and out of just random question. More for my own sake of how many pounds of food do you think this is going to roughly get you? This is just for my own information. Just curious. I understand if it depends is an answer.
Yes. So I think currently our current budget for food is around $65,000 a year, and we're currently kind of giving out roughly around 10,000 pounds of food a month. So that should kind of give you an idea of how much this would be able to fund.
Cool, thank you. That's it, I yield.
Senator Ogba.
Also, for my own curiosity, like, have there been any like financial issues that shop faced prior?
I've been with the shop for over a year now, and under my work with them, we have not had any financial issues. We have a lot of support from the community and Iowa State University, and the support that student government has already provided us through annuals each year. This additional support would just help us continue to grow.
All right, thank you. I yield.
Is there any further discussion on the motion as a whole? You with yield or withdraw? Vice Speaker Bruick.
Sorry, Mr. President. I move to suspend the rules to substitute the link on the bill currently being considered with the updated language of the contract. with the updated language of the contract that, 49 Covenant 3, line 49 Covenant 3, to substitute the language of 49 Covenant, the link with the correct language for 49 Covenant 3.
Second. So you are suspending the rules to make this amendment?
Correct.
All right, so we are on suspending the rules in order to make this amendment. Vice Speaker Bruick.
All right, so I apologize. This was a problem we just caught, and it's a similar problem to what we had last week. The language in Covenant 3 on line 49 refers to the publication board, which SHOP doesn't have. And so we're going to, President Ludwig will have a new contract that just has the correct language. It's not going to change anything substantive. It's just going to make it so that we're not referring to the wrong executive board of SHOP, because they don't have a publication board. So this is a better way to do what we did last meeting with the contract. This is a way to make it so we don't have to recess and do a whole bunch of goofy stuff. We're just going to change the link to make it to the correct contract that has the language that isn't wrong. So that's all this motion does. I promise you there's nothing nefarious happening. I'm trying to just change this one little line that we goofed on.
All right, so we are on the motion to suspend the rules to amend a proposed contract. Question has been called for. Is there any objection? Perfect. Is there any objection to moving to a vote now? Unanimous consent has been called for. Is there any objection to suspending the rules to amend a proposed contract? Seeing no objections, the rules shall be suspended. Is there a motion with that proposed amendment?
I move to substitute the link to the SHOP contract. Move to substitute the link to the contract with the updated language of the contract. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to substitute the hyperlink on the attached contract in the official bill as proposed. Is there any discussion on this amendment? Question has been called for and seconded. Is there any objection to moving to a vote? Unanimous consent has been called for. Is there any objection to making the substitution now? Seeing none, the amendment shall be adopted. We're back on the motion as a whole. Question has been called for and seconded. Is there any objection to ending debate now? Seeing no objections, Vice Speaker Bruick, any closing comments?
Thank you. That was weird, and I know it's confusing, but it had to happen. Sorry.
All right. Passing a contract and the contract saying this requires 2/3 of seated senators. The threshold to pass this bill will be 19 in the affirmative. When I say your name, please say yes, no, or abstain, starting with Ogba. Yes. Becker. Yes. Braun. Yes. Bruick. Yes. Burks. Yes. Dre. Eisma?
Yes.
Engelken? Yes. Frencher? Yes. Gopa? Yes. Hackbarth? Yes. Heidenreich?
Yes.
Holiday? Yes. Kuehler?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Yes.
Margaret?
Yes.
Mays?
Yes.
Momini?
Yes.
Schnepp?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Tansey?
Yes.
Topete?
Yes.
And Vo. With a vote of 22 to 0, the motion carries. We will now move into 2022-3-022SA, renewing the TAO contract with Vice Speaker Bruick.
You literally never called my name.
1 second, sorry, I'm a little scattered. So this is the TAO contract. This is what we had one of our lovely programs about just now. So we currently have a contract with Student Counseling Services to provide the funding for the Therapy Assistance Online app, but that is expiring at the end of this fiscal year. So this is the contract to re-up that and continue providing that funding. It also has a term of is a term of 3 years from July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2026. And each year the funding is a little bit different, but it starts at $25,245 and goes up to, in the last year of the contract, fiscal year 26, $26,264.90 for a total funding of $77,259.80. That is, I believe, all that's major in this bill. So with that, I will yield to the floor for discussion.
The floor is now open for any discussion that there may be on the renewing the TAO contract bill. Senator Kuehler.
I will yield to President Ludwig.
He doesn't know what's happening.
Oh, I thought you wanted to speak. My bad.
No, mention what's wrong. He doesn't know.
Yeah, okay. So we noticed the issue again on this contract. So Covenant 1, line 22, initial term of 5 years, and then line 24, 3 years. So, yeah, I yield.
All right, the floor is now open for any discussion or motions that you may want to make.
I move to suspend the rules and with no objection to I move to suspend the rules with no objection to amend the bill's hyperlink to the correct updated contract.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, and unanimous consent has been asked for to suspend the rules. Is there any objection to suspending the rules in order to make this amendment? Seeing none, the rules shall be suspended. Is there a second part?
I move to substitute in the correct hyperlink with no objection.
All right, is there any objection to substituting the hyperlink to the correct contract? Seeing no objections, that amendment shall be adopted. Back on the motion, as a question has been called for and second, is there any objection to moving into a vote at this time? Seeing no objections, Vice Speaker Brewitt, closing comments.
Ditto my last closing comments. Thank you.
All right, and with that, we will be moving into a vote. When I call your name, please say yes, no, or abstain. Agba. Becker. Braun. Brewick. Burks. Dre. Eisma. Engelken. Frencher. Gopa. Hackbarth. Heidenreich. Holiday. Kuehler. Mahoney. Margaret. Mays. Momini. Schnepp. Slater. Tansey. Topete. And Vo. With a vote of 23 to 0, the motion carries. We will now move into 2022-3-024F Funding Shop Cookbooks with Senator Eisma.
Would the, why are you always loud? Would the representative of SciSci approach? Thank you. My bad. If you just want to give a description and a rundown of what the cookbooks are about.
Yeah. All right, so my name is Callan Randall. I'm here to represent Cyclone Student Innovators. We are a group of students who meet in Sector every Wednesday and Thursday for a couple of hours. And our goal is to inspire and initiate innovation here on campus. And we've decided for our first semester ever, we are going to do that by doing 13-week projects that either help students here on campus or people in the Ames community. Currently we have 3 running projects going. The one I'm currently working on is, of course, the cookbook project. And what that is currently detailing is we're working with SHOP to create a 35 to 45 page cookbook that includes a full nutrition breakdown of all the recipes contained within, a full cost breakdown of all the recipes contained within. And since we have also worked with Shop and they noted to us that the majority of their clientele who use their services are international students, we are trying to make the majority of our recipes more international and ethnically based to mostly cater to these students and show to them, hey, you can mostly cook stuff from home utilizing domestic ingredients from the middle of Iowa in a food pantry. So that is currently what we are working on. And what we are currently asking for this project is for a 35 to 45 paged book. The cost for this ranges between $1.50 to around $4. So with roughly $2,000, we're hoping to print between 500 to upwards to all the way up to around 900 copies of a physical book, which we would then hand out completely for free, both in shop or at some point in the month of May.
Do you yield? I yield. All right, we'll now open the floor for any discussion that there may be on the bill as a whole. We will start with Senator Dre.
All right, so thank you for coming in. My question was about how you've been in collaboration with Tone Spices. So are they like sponsoring any part of this, or what is their involvement?
Good question, yeah. So I reached out personally to Tone Spices back at the beginning of March, and I asked them, hey, is there any way that you could donate spices to Shop, since a good majority of the recipes we currently have in store do typically contain a lot of seasonings and spices that are pretty hard to come by for a lot of students. And they said to me, tell you what, we will take around 2 months worth of spices that we normally don't use, save it for you, and you can come pick it up in April. So actually next week I'm gonna go in and pick it up. But for now, I'll be donating 2 months worth of spices to Shop. And then one thing I'm personally hoping to do is seeing if I can reach out to Tone Spices again and see if we could get more of a continuous thing going, just because I think that would be something really unique for just a food pantry, especially one for Iowa State, since it's kind of hard to cook really good tasting food if you don't have some stuff to like season it up a little bit.
Okay, awesome. And then my other question was, will the recipes in the cookbook like specify to use Tone Spices, or like, no, so it's not in collaboration with the cookbook specifically?
No, it's just because they're close by and they've worked with the university before, so they were my best bet.
Okay, perfect. All right, I yield.
Senator Kuehler.
I'll yield to Finance Director Claiborne.
I have speaking privileges.
Don't need to do
I
that.
mean, if you want to,
Yeah,
I don't really
sure.
care. Okay. Yeah. So just I'll stand up for this. Just for other information outside of this, within research, people have seen that ISU Extension Outreach already has a program called Spend Smart, Eat Smart. That is it's a website/online database filled with recipes that are simple, healthy, and cost-effective, and available to everyone at no cost. And recipes from this website can be found on the Shop social medias and in Shop as a whole. They come in little cards that you can pick up and look at. Again, just wanted to clarify and give that information to the body so they can kind of keep that information with them as they do vote on this.
Senator Kuehler, do you yield? Senator Becker.
So I agree with Finance Director Claiborne. I think if the goal is to widely distribute these recipes, it would be really awesome to compile some kind of website or some kind of like social media presence, and then you could email that in maybe the Iowa State Daily Dose or to whomever directly to students, and then they could have that anywhere, anytime, and it wouldn't be a physical thing. Not only would this be more accessible, but it would also save us about $2,000, which perhaps we could donate to Shop itself and feed, 200 more students or whatever that would feed. I yield.
Senator Ogba.
Hi. So I guess how were the dishes like chosen, and like do you have like feedback from like students, student organizations, student representatives on what ethnic foods like that you would be promoting, and also what is the process for choosing the ethnic foods?
Yeah, good question. It's funny you mentioned that. So we have actually been working with International Student Council in an attempt to get some recipes from students from, what's it called? the food fest that they host every semester. So most of the recipes that are typically hosted at that event, they stated they had a full documentation of those recipes somewhere that also included nutrition and cost breakdowns for those recipes. Unfortunately, on both of our ends, we've kind of had some trouble getting a hold of those recipes. So part of the reason why I've stated in the bill the book will be between 35 to 45 pages is simply based on the fact if we can get a hold of those recipes within a 2-week time frame, because we are scheduled to have a rough draft and a printing done by the 3rd week of April. So within that time frame, if we can't get those recipes, that's okay. What we currently have in stock are mostly recipes that me personally, I reached out to a bunch of friends of mine who are from out of country, and I asked them, hey, do you have any recommendations for me? And through mostly that, they're like, oh yeah, here's this rice and lentil dish, here's, I would highly recommend like Japanese curry, for example. That's something that a lot of people would enjoy, etc. And it's mostly just based on personal recommendations I asked people for. And then I found stuff mostly just off the internet where it's like, oh yeah, I won't get copyrighted for this. But yeah, we have about 15 recipes currently that we are working on and counting, including this weekend.
And for the recipes that you said that you like found off the internet and whatever else, like do you know if like they adhere to like any like allergies, like anything like that?
Yeah, I think in some of the resources I looked at, they might have stated allergen warnings, but also we're currently going to be editing these recipes and putting it into a template we currently have. Because to also note on your note, we are making an online version of this. So there is going to be a complete online version that students can access via QR code. But we also think that it's sometimes just really nice to have the physical copy so you can open it, make your own notes, and maybe like add your own things like, oh yeah, I tried this recipe once, but if I'm low on money, I can substitute in olive oil for butter in some instance, or I can maybe add like 2 teaspoons of cumin into this recipe because I think it makes it taste better. So that's mostly one of the other reasons we thought about doing a physical copy, is just because it's nice. But yeah, hope that answers your question.
Yep. Thank you. I yield.
Senator Mays.
I agree with you on the physical cookbook part. Having a physical copy is really nice. I think it would be really nice for people who are visiting shop to have a physical one. But my question kind of retained to the accessibility of these recipes. I'm not sure if you have knowledge on it, but I mean, a lot of people that use shop, I'm sure, are likely low on funds and things like that. So are a lot of these recipes easy to make for someone who might have limited time if they need to work a lot? Or are they requiring utensils and cookware that are easily accessible to most students, unlike, you know, like a crock pot or something, like other things you need to buy? Are there a good amount of recipes like that in the cookbook?
Yeah, so we currently have a range of, I guess, difficulty level or like amount of ingredients or equipment you would need. Because, for example, we have something ranging from a fruit cocktail jello, which would probably only require a hot pan and like a mini fridge to make. And then one of the more complicated dishes, which may or may not get cut because of difficulty, is moussaka, just because that's basically lasagna and it's really hard to make. But yeah, we currently have a range. The majority of everything is a lot of like rice-based stuff, and a lot of it might at least require a saucepan. But I think one thing we went in assuming with the shop cookbook is if a majority of students are using shop, we are mostly assuming that they are more so students who are maybe in apartments versus the dorms, because most of the dorm students have access to ISU dining, so they're mostly good in that regard. Those who mostly use shop, from what we've are making an assumption on, are more so in apartments and have a greater need to mostly make their own food, but at a very cheap cost.
Perfect, thank you. I was just curious. I yield.
Senator Slater.
So, yeah, what everyone said I think are valid points. I do really like this bill. What was the basis in that you determined 400 was a good quantity?
Yeah, so originally when we submitted a quote to ISU Printing, and under that time we assumed we would be doing an 85-page book. That's a lot of work. We said to them, okay, 85 pages, give us 3 levels of quality base, and tell us how much that would be. Maximum quantity for 400 copies for like the highest quality, like fully bound book, would have been around $3,600, and then 400 copies for the lowest priced, really crappy printed book would have been around $1,500. So at the time it was mostly because we were assuming, okay, at maximum, we're gonna need like $4,000 to get this all printed, and that's gonna be a lot. But then as time went on, and mostly we then realized, okay, this is gonna take a lot of editing and work, and also just simply having 20 recipes is gonna be a pretty good start. Our page count went down, and therefore so did our cost. So now since we're looking at a 35 to 45 page book, okay, that gives us more leeway to print more books. And actually was in contact with Shop recently. I spoke with the co-presidents, and they actually were pretty happy with the idea of 400 copies, since they stated to me on a monthly basis, they get around 1,000 students in per month. So having 400 to 1,000 copies would actually be pretty decent for a monthly issue.
Yeah, and then just a follow-up question, and you may have said this already, and I might have just missed it, but for distribution of the copies, will you be having those at Shop or, okay.
Well, two things. So the plan is Shop, but also Sictor is having an open house in the first week of May, I believe. And to mostly showcase our project, of course, we'll probably have copies that we'll be giving out during that period.
All right, thank you, I yield.
Hi, so I was looking at the recipes on the Extension Outreach Eat Smart or Spend Smart Eat Smart website, and I think it's kind of accomplishing the same thing you're going out to accomplish. And it's very, I looked through it, and all of the recipes are very good. It's very adequate, and they have a lot of multicultural options and also things with minimal ingredients and equipment. I'm just curious how your cookbook differs from the options on the website that's already out there.
That is an excellent question. So actually, way back in February, we actually did reach out to those guys, because up until February, I didn't even know they were existed, and I've also looked at it. Fantastic stuff that they have on there. And one thing we said to them when we reached out was, hey, would you guys be interested in maybe utilizing some of your recipes in our book? And we would basically give you free marketing and free promotion, since probably not a lot of students know about you guys. And it was at that same time, we also decided to kind of diverge the project to be more international ethnic-based dishes instead of basically what those guys offer. And once they heard about that, they kind of pulled back from the project, being like, yeah, maybe to avoid possibly misunderstandings, we're not going to touch that. You guys can do whatever you want with it. So the way it's mostly difference is, again, we're trying to have the majority of the recipes all be like recipes based from students. That was the original goal once we made that decision. We actually get in contact with students, get students' perspective to be like, hey, what's a recipe from home that you miss that you don't see cooked often, and what's hypothetically one that would be fairly cheap and easy to make. So that is mostly the difference, having actual student stories come in, maybe say something for that, and we would say, oh yeah, this recipe came from someone who came from Jordan, and they used to eat it like all the time. And that's still mostly the case, but again, we're pending on waiting for those recipes to mostly come in. What we currently have is also still pretty good, since they're mostly based on stuff that I've talked with friends of mine who have recommended to me. So yeah, that's mostly the difference. We actually have sourcing from international students of recipes they personally use. That extension reach, fantastic stuff, but also I would kind of say, even though you mentioned that there are good ethnic-based stuff on there, I'd kind of say what they recommend is kind of bland in comparison to what we could really do. So, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for clearing that up.
Yeah.
I yield.
Senator Dre.
Sorry. All right. After looking at this Spend Smart extension and hearing from Kit, I just wanted to encourage a no vote because it has been done, and I don't think our funding should go to this bill. Thank you.
Speaker Mahoney.
So I'm actually going to disagree, Senator Dre. I came in here kind of actually voting, thinking I was going to vote no, kind of knowing that there is other options online and everything else, but having heard more of the circumstances surrounding it, and knowing that I think this would be a good supplement to what Extension Outreach already does, I'm going to be voting yes. I think this is a cool project that will be able to reach some more students and give, especially hearing that there will hopefully be a website incorporated, right? That's kind of contingent for
No,
me.
no matter what, we will be having like a PDF version or like a QR code version that students can scan and like have access to that. That's gonna be a
Perfect.
guarantee.
I think that kind of seals the deal for me on voting yes.
Senator Margaret.
Hello. Firstly, thank you for being here. I'll be quick in my comment. I really like what you're doing. I really like the project. Just from a sake of, I want to get behind the bill from a sense of like fiscal responsibility, and for clarity, you've alluded to this a little bit, but will we get more use out of your project in print form than we will just the website form?
I think there will be more benefit to print form since, in addition to getting all the recipes in there, it's also more promotion for shop, which they can definitely always use, as well as promotion for some other resources on campus, since that's just also the general plan in addition to recipes also includes some information on, you know, ISU dining, shop, anything and everything you can think of for a student would need to know just about finding food here in Ames. And again, having the physical copy and just being able to feel something really nice will probably just boost morale and be like, oh, this is sick. Instead of constantly having to grab and like scan QR codes, I can actually take this home with me and keep it, and this is like nice.
Awesome. Well, thank you. For the good of the body, I plan to vote yes, and I yield.
Senator Gopa.
Thank you for coming out here. This is a really nice idea. Have you thought about selling these cookbooks to donors? Like, they might buy the cookbook and then they might donate more and you give them the cookbook. Have you thought about that idea?
Excellent question. We did consider that originally before we thought we could secure funding, but due to, especially right now, us being a little unsure about copyright law and a couple other things, we think it probably will feel a little bit better to give them out completely for free, just since for everything, again, we've looked up on the internet but made changes to, it avoids getting in trouble with copyright law mostly. And also, we'll probably still be giving these cookbooks out to donors. But again, since it's like to promote shop and also to promote this organization, it kind of just feels a little bit more natural to give it out for free instead of selling.
Yeah, that's cool. And if this bill does not pass today, would you guys consider putting up posters all around campus with the QR code and maybe a recipe on top in that poster, and that QR code will link to the main website?
We probably will do that, and I will say if by chance we do not secure funding either tonight or within the next 3 weeks, we have like roughly, I think, 100 to 200 from our mentor who'd be willing to print maybe roughly 20 copies of the book, but those will not go to students, those will mostly go to donors, just to say, look at what these guys can do now and in the future, so it would be more promotional material for us. I prefer that not to be the case, but if it is what it is, then we'll be happy with it, and we will be sure to print just the QR code version.
Okay. And as you mentioned before, 1,000 people come to the shop every month, right?
According
and
to co-presidents, yes.
And 400 cookbooks. So those are going to get over in like half a month. What about the rest?
So I would say this could almost maybe be like a trial period, for example. If this comes out and people say, well, we really like this and we still want like more physical copies of the cookbook. For example, for this organization, since it's a semester-based project thing, we might keep this over for next year for the students who'll be coming in and say to them, okay, if you have no idea what you want to do, work on volume 2 of the cookbook and you can go from there.
Okay, that's cool. I really hope this bill gets passed. Thank you. I yield.
Senator Becker.
Okay, I'm just still stuck on the like virtual versus physical. Most of my friends who I know who like cook regularly have their own recipe books where they like find things they like and they handwrite it in. So for me, I guess I just don't really see the value of the additional $2,000 when they're already going to have an amazing website and people will already have access to these things. I think if the goal is to battle food insecurity, we should be donating our money towards food for people to eat. I yield.
Senator Momini.
I would like to voice my support for this bill. I think it's a wonderful idea, despite it also being great to have access through it via internet. I think it's very important to have a physical copy. Not only will you be able to write into the book and add your own recommendations, as far as food sustainability and food insecurity, the book is supposed to, from my understanding, address nutritional needs, address cultural needs. This is important to populations outside of ones that might not be yourself, in consideration of the student body as a whole. I think it's rare that we see things that are catered to minoritized cultures, and I think that it would be great for them to see something. They could walk into shop, they could see that somebody took effort, time, and care and made a book that is specifically catered, and they might just find their favorite recipe, and they might just see all the nutritional value that they never knew that it had. Not to mention, if these said students are already struggling financially with food, there's no guarantee that they even have access to internet outside of Iowa State. So I do think that it's important that we fund these physical copies. It's really not that much of an ask. I think that the benefit much outweighs the cost. I yield. Thank you.
Senator Holliday.
Senator Mominy pretty much took the words right out of my mouth. Excuse me. I am going to be voting in support of this bill tonight. Kind of like how student life doesn't end when we leave the campus, student life doesn't end when the semester is over. So even though we have internet secured when we are here on campus during session, when students have to go home, it's not, or just to internships in general also, it's not guaranteed that they have internet and access to these cookbooks online. So I think having the written availability to them would be a great asset. I yield.
Vice Speaker Bruick.
Hi, thank you for coming. Just really appreciate anyone coming out, asking for funding. I know it can be a little intimidating and scary, so thank you for that. And then I did want to address a few things. One, there's something, a thought I had, Senator Gopa, when you asked your question about the number of cookbooks versus the number of people that come into shop each day. This is not empirical. This is based on my own kind of just perception of how things are, but I would not assume that every single person that goes into shop would necessarily take a cookbook. It's maybe not for everyone, and that's fine. So I imagine that these cookbooks would probably still last a decent amount of time, even if a lot of people are going in. Plenty of people who go into shop are going to be repeat people who come in more than just the 1 month, so they won't need it again. I think this is at the very least a very good start at getting a lot of people who would be using the shop these cookbooks. And then just to kind of speak to this distinction between an online virtual resource and a physical copy. As many of you know, I am very into parliamentary procedure and Robert's rules and whatnot, and thousands upon thousands of resources are online for every rule in the book in Robert's rules and how it works, and basically verbatim what is in the book. And yet I still did feel the need to spend $30 to buy my own physical personal copy of Robert's rules, because a physical copy just has value. It is something that you can hold, you can reference whenever you want without regard to whether you have internet access, whether your phone is charged, whether your computer is available. I've always had the privilege in my life to have internet access in pretty much any situation I go into, but not everyone has that privilege, and I don't think it's fair that we can assume that virtual is just a supplement, because even when regardless, you might not have it, and even when you do, it's better to have the physical copy sometimes. It feels better in a lot of ways. With that, I do yield.
Senator Schnepp.
Like having this cookbook created. I do have one question though, because it is going to be given out at shop. Will, like, if there's like rice and chicken and stuff like that, will those resources be there for shop, like in shop? Because my biggest concern is like someone's like, oh my goodness, there's this Thai chicken meal that looks absolutely amazing. I can't wait to make it. And then there's like a couple of like ingredients missing. I know you talked about spices, which is amazing, but like the main bulk of the food, I'm just curious about.
Yeah, so based on my own observations with shop, the main thing they noted to me is that things fluctuate every single day. But the only things that are somewhat of a guarantee is that summer is a lot more produce-based and winter is a lot more meat-based. But from what I've been told, they said that they get shipments, I believe, twice a week. They have pretty good consistent partnerships with both Food Bank of Iowa and Fairway. And in all the times I've walked in to ask some questions and do an interview, I've always seen a good majority of the ingredients that would hypothetically be in our cookbook on the shelves, with maybe 1 or 2 outliers missing. So I think and I hope with what shop currently has, the majority of everything in our cookbook should be able to be made by these students if their only option is shop.
Got it. That is amazing to hear. Thank you so much. I yield.
And with that, the floor is open for discussion or comments on the bill as a whole. Question has been called for and second. Is there any objection to moving to a vote now? Is there any objection to removing Speaker Mahoney from the roll? Seeing no objections, he shall be removed. Senator Eisman, do you have any closing comments? We're good. All right. Let me update. And with that being just a general finance bill, 2/3 in the affirmative is needed, which is currently 15 at this meeting. So if you, or when I call your name, please say yes, no, or abstain. Agba. Yes. Becker. No. Braun. Yes. Bruick. Yes. Burks. Yes. Dre. No. Eisma. Yes. Engelken. Yes. Frencher. Yes. Gopa. Yes. Hackbarth.
Yes.
Heidenreich.
Yes.
Holiday.
Yes.
Hewler.
Yes.
Margaret.
Yes.
Mays.
Yes.
Momini.
Yes.
Schnepp.
Yes.
Slater.
Yes.
Tansey. Topete.
Abstain.
And Vo.
Yes.
All right, with a vote of 18 to 2, the motion carries.
Thank you very much. We definitely appreciate it.
Mr. President,
Vice Speaker Bruick.
I move to add Speaker Mahoney to the roll.
Is there any objection to adding Speaker Mahoney to the roll? Hearing no objections, he shall be sat. We'll now move into Internal Matters, General Orders 2022-3-018F, Annual Allocations Recommendations for Fiscal Year 2024 with Senator Patel. With Senator Tansey.
I think the finance director is taking the podium.
Hello again. So obviously you can do whatever you want, but the organization that will be here besides us to poll is Student Alumni Leadership Council. They have been here for over an hour. Sorry about that. So again, if you want to poll more organizations, you can, but I will be the representative for them. So poll, if you want, SALC and then student government.
So the floor is now open for discussion on the bill as a whole. Vice Speaker Bruick.
Mr. President, I move to divide the budgets of student government and the Student Alumni Leadership Council.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to divide the question to remove student government and the Student Alumni Leadership Council into their own motions. Is there any debate on this? Hearing no debate, we'll move into a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous consent has been called for. Is there any objection to dividing the question to remove student government and SALC into their own motion? Hearing no objections, those questions shall be divided. We're now back on the motion as a whole for the remainder of the budgets that have not been removed. Vice Speaker Bruick.
Hey, all. So I don't have anything substantive, obviously, because I didn't pull any of the other budgets. I think they're all fine. They're pretty cool. But just to reiterate what's happening and what I said in my program, so what we've now done is, as I alluded to, pulled Student Government and Student Alumni Leadership Council, the two clubs that Finance Director Claiborne wanted us to look at. So now we are looking at only everything else besides those two. So what we're about to vote on would be all the, I don't know how many there are, I haven't counted, but all the other organizations that we are going to fund. So this is now an up or down vote on the rest of them. If we're going to approve them, which I hope we will, I don't see why we wouldn't, but who knows, then those are all approved, those are all going to be good to go, and that's basically the funding that they're going to get in the big picture bill. If we deny them, which I don't, again, foresee, but who knows, then we will look at all of them, every single organization in this bill individually, in the same way that we're about to look at student government and SALC. So that's what we're voting on right now. That's what's going on, and that's all I have.
Speaker Mahoney.
Finance Director Cleveland, if we were to do or to have a discussion about doing the scalar, is that on this bill or the big picture?
This, and then we would have to amend the big picture bill line item.
Originally, for me, there's one major kind of question.
Yes.
The one concern I have about taking 400 grand out of special projects like this is if next year we would have to do a similar sort of thing. So I'm just curious if you can explain a little bit more about how that fee increase is going to hit, that we took, I think, the $5 fee increase that's going through the Board of Regents right now, and kind of how special projects might look next year if we're going to have to be pulling another 300 grand out to backfill a similar level of budgeting.
Yeah, so if that fee increase does pass, it will drastically decrease. Just for example, if it were to pass and would affect this bill specifically, then the supplemental funding from special projects would be around, I think, $200,000. So it would decrease as the bill stands right now, as the $417,000, some supplemental funding from special projects. If the fee were to go through for FY24, for example, just kind of giving an example, that supplemental funding would decrease from 417 to around 230, and last year was around 247. So it would be less than what we saw last year, but again, we, as finance director and COA, we've had conversations where we don't want to sit on 1.5. I don't think it's right to sit on that much money. Obviously, we do have that reserve account for specific emergencies, but I don't see any emergency equating to $1.5 million unless something drastic happens at the university that we have to fund. But I think with student organizations, specifically the bigger organizations that we see specifically for SALC, organizations this year have seen an increase in fees across the board, but also an increase in interest to do more. This is the first year that I have seen since COVID. Obviously, I don't want to blame COVID for everything, but this is the first year since COVID that organizations are to the full effect that they used to be. Dance Marathon had the big event for the first time in the MU since COVID, and one person in Dance Marathon saw that big event pre-COVID, and that was the president. So that's just kind of across the board, across campus or across student organizations. They are fully going back to what they have seen before, with carryovers going through. Obviously, with the increase in fees that we saw across the board with the MU, if you're interested in those fee increases, please ask me. You can see them in full on the OFP system. So you can see how much those fees have affected organizations. And if we were to do the scaling down, we would have to talk to organizations specifically, see what they want to do, because again, like I said earlier, some organizations budget to the penny, to the cent, specifically for AV fees, for Memorial Union fees, and that 5% decrease would come out of one specific line item, most likely, and that would potentially decrease performers, entertainment coming to the MU for those events. But everyone wants to see big names on campus. I do agree. But again, it's just a conversation we can have in the Senate. I can talk all day about organizations because I think what we have seen right now, coming back from COVID, we want to have a rebound. Obviously, every university across the United States wants that. We want an increase in student population, but we don't see that right now. That's why we did have that fee increase going to the Board of Regents, because we think that obviously at the end of the day, affordability is a big problem that we see across campus, but
that $2 increase or $5 increase or whatever you want to kind of categorize it as will allow students to have the college experience that they want to, that they intended to have at Iowa State. So I urge you to not have that scale, please. Obviously, you can move it, you can do a motion, we can talk about it. But I think just putting organizations, putting your shoes in organizations coming to Finance Committee, we fund majority of a lot of budgets. And if we don't fund them, they won't have the events that they want to put on.
So then it sounds like pulling this 400 grand out like this is kind of a one-time thing. It won't be next year we're pulling another 400 grand.
And like the thing is, in past, we've continuously seen, we did not used to have to pull out of special projects, but now we have to. But we are seeing an increase in special projects instead of seeing a decrease, as technically we should if we keep pulling from special projects, but we keep seeing an increase year after year. So obviously $417,000 is a lot of money, but again, that's, if we do take that out now, it would be around 1.1 million before we see the transfers from FY23 after the fiscal year.
Yeah, with that makes me feel a lot more comfortable about pulling that much out, that this is not like gonna set the trend that we're gonna continue to be draining special projects and, you know, start to see it. Because I like it personally, I agree, I think it should sit right around $1 million. 1.5 is a little egregious.
Yeah, and special project continuously has been either supplementing funding that we like continuously been zero or has a positive increase.
Perfect, with that I yield.
Is there any more discussion on the motion as a whole? Question has been called for and second. Is there any objection to moving into a vote at this time? Seeing none, Senator Tansey, any closing comments on the motion? Seeing none, we'll move into a vote. We do need 2/3 of seated senators to vote in the affirmative for this to pass, which is 19. So we are voting on all budgets except student government and SALC. When I call your name, please say yes, no, or abstain. Agba. Becker. Yes. Braun. Yes. Bruick. Yes. Burks. Yes. Dre. Yes. Eisma. Yes. Engelken. Yes. Frencher. Yes. Gopa. Yes. Hackbarth. Yes. Heidenreich. Yes. Holiday. Yes. Hewler. Yes. Mahoney. Yes. Margaret. Yes. Mays. Yes. Momini.
Yes.
Schnepp.
Yes.
Slater.
Yes.
Tansey.
Yes.
Topete.
Yes.
And Vo.
Yes.
With a vote of 23 to 0, the first question passes. We will now move into the specific budget of student government. Yes. Oh, we do have a 10-minute recess. I don't want to forget that. This meeting will reconvene at 8:33. Meeting shall be reconvened as it is 8:33. We have just, as a refresher, passed the unpolled budgets. It will now move into the student government budget specifically. Do we want to do SALC first? All right, I was just going in the order that they were mentioned, so we'll now move into the SALC budget. Their budget. Do alumni. First one, only one. 23, the first one. Okay, so I'll kind of explain why I wanted them to come. Please have discussion because I don't want them to sit here for an hour for nothing. So the biggest thing that we saw is they saw around a $42,000 increase. That is specifically within the line items concert and then the homecoming kickoff committee. So the concert itself is $30,000 and then the kickoff is around $11,000. Those are two new additional line item groups that we have seen from fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 24. They had a very good argument for why they decided to add this to their budget. I think them coming here kind of explaining what they want to do with it, kind of why they are including that in this year's budget, for next year's budget, kind of allows the Senate to see the outreach they are doing outside of the Greek community. So again, to read these specifically, we would need to extend debate on line items. If you want to do the whole budget, you can, but if you want to, you can just extend debate to those two specific line items, and then once you do that and that is approved, I'll have the representatives come up, kind of explain what's going on, what they're requesting, and why they're requesting that increase. All right, so we are on debate as a whole. We'll go to Vice Speaker Bruick.
Mr. President, I move to extend debate to the line items other concert and other homecoming kickoff committee.
Is there a second? Second. All right, so we will now have discussion solely on the two line items that were just mentioned. So floor is now open for discussion.
I'll yield the rest of my time to the representatives.
Okay, cool. Good evening. My name is Adam Wolf, and I am one of two homecoming co-directors for the fall 2023 celebration. My counterpart is Bradley Schaefer, who is on Greek Week Central and currently supervising Greek tread tournaments at LEAD. Next to me is our Homecoming Central Committee Advisor, Manager of Student Programs for the Iowa State University Alumni Association, Kaylee Severn. I'll walk through the kickoff first, just because it's what's first in my notes. The kickoff celebration was added as an event in the fall of last year to replace the homecoming parade. Iowa State had a homecoming parade for around 5 years. It never really took off. We took the opportunity. I was on the kickoff planning committee for last year. We took the opportunity, said no more parade, and created this kickoff celebration in the parking lots in front of the Alumni Association building, in front of the Alumni Center, really as a way to showcase the students as opposed to show off the students in a way. It was really interactive. It involved the community. It involved student groups. We had a live performance stage, a lot of things that were not included in the parade, but probably the more important part is that it included a lot of student organizations that were not involved in the parade. It drastically broadened our reach in terms of who was in homecoming events. The problem that we ran into last year and why you see an increase on your kickoff budget for this year is that to close Main Street names is free, and so the parade was relatively inexpensive because every float provided their own candy and things like that. And so when we went to actually create the kickoff, we were super underfunded. We ended up having to ask a community organization to sponsor the stage just so we could have a stage, but then we had 9 student organizations perform on it over the course of 3 hours. So this budget for the kickoff celebration purely exists as an accurate representation of how it could have been budgeted last year. So that's why it looks like it's a large increase. The kickoff has been our most notable change over the last year, and was also the one that we got the most positive feedback from. Every university administrator who went has spoken very highly of it. President Wendy Winterstein was there. Dean Jolly in the College of Human Sciences attended. Jeff Johnson at the Alumni Center attended, and they all had very good things to say. And so we would like to continue that momentum, and so that's why we have that request.
I'd also like to clarify that at the time, the kickoff is our probably most attended event. We do have the pep rally, which you're probably more familiar with. The pep rally is mostly alumni though. So the kickoff really incorporates students, faculty, staff, alumni, and the community. We had over 1,000 people there, over 20 student organizations, and over 8 performers on stage. And those numbers are expected to grow as it was very well received. But that is the one event that like everyone comes to, and it's very interactive, to not feel like Club Fest or Welcome Fest. It's more of like building those connections and building those traditions, because in the long run, hopefully our goal at SALC is you have an amazing time here, and you remember us in the future, bringing back more students with your family and friends. And I think we really achieved that goal with this event.
Vice Speaker Burke, to yield.
Could you also speak on the concert as well?
Yes. So this is a completely new thing. This is something that was born out of some conversations that I had, and then just as we sifted through Homecoming Central Committee applications for the 2023 Homecoming Central Committee, who reports to Bradley and I. A lot of people mentioned that they wanted to see something like this, and so we tried to come up with a way that it would be feasible to create a concert as part of Homecoming Week. I'll answer a couple of the questions that I get. First, why Stevens as opposed to Hilton? Hilton would be a much larger venue. It would also cost roughly five times the artist guarantee that Stevens would. So we felt more comfortable coming here and asking for $30,000 than coming here and asking for 5 or more times that to get a 14,000 seat venue instead of a 2,600 seat venue. So that's why Stevens. In terms of why a concert, the goal with Homecoming this year, we had a meeting with Dr. Younger yesterday. We intend to have a meeting with the Sorority Fraternity Engagement Office as soon as Greek Week is over. But the goal of Homecoming for next year is to broaden our reach and to broaden our scope with organizations and to broaden our scope with students who aren't ordinarily interacted with by Homecoming and who don't necessarily see Homecoming as an event for everybody. And so we're really trying hard to broaden our reach. And one of the ways that we wanted to do that was to give students the opportunity to see a nationally touring act at Stevens as part of our week and as part of our slate of events to continue that work towards making Homecoming as inclusive for all students as we can possibly make it. So that's why. I would only note that $30,000 does not cover the cost of the entire concert. The concert as a whole would be significantly more than that. This $30,000 was the lowest number that we felt comfortable we could go to Stevens and say this is what we can guarantee you in terms of funding so that they could pursue an artist. But the all-in for the concert is somewhere in the ballpark of 2 or 3 or 4 times that. So that's the justification there. Sure. So this $30,000 would go to Stevens in the form of helping them secure an act for the concert. Stevens has told us that if and when they would secure that act, they would provide students with discounted tickets in this form of a student pre-sale to offset that $30,000. So we would provide, the most that I would be comfortable having students pay for this, knowing that their student government funded it in part, would be about $20. And so we would extend student tickets at a pre-sale, a set number of them at $20. When those seats got filled, the rest of the concert would be general admission. But the hope of that was to not only have students have the opportunity to see a concert, but have it at a discounted price as part of our week. So that's the $30,000. Originally in the budget was written as going directly to tickets. We rewrote that so that that money could go to Stevens first to secure the artist, and then the students would be offered a student presale to offset that.
The concert is also an opportunity, if we hold it earlier in the week, to present other opportunities homecoming has for students. We have normal engagement ways that we've tried, but I think live entertainment is always a favorite, and that's a great way to pull that number in and kind of make those personal connections instead of just sending an email, which we'll do in addition, but there's many benefits to the concert.
Do you yield?
Before I yield, I do just want to remind everyone of what I said and where we are at in the Robert's Rules process. So now that this budget has been pulled, we have three options as Student Government Senate. We can approve the recommendation as is, which would approve the $30,000 for the concert and the $11,500 for the kickoff. And that would just do it as is. We can vote to deny that the funding, which would zero fund the entire organization, not just these two line items. It would zero fund the whole organization beyond these line items. Or we can recommit it to Finance Committee. And so if we want any of these line items to be changed in any way, if we're in any way unsatisfied, that would have to go to Finance Committee first. They'd come back with their changes based on what we asked of them. If we're satisfied with that, we can approve them using the first option, or we can recommit them. If they come back again and we're still not satisfied with that, then we, as Senate, can amend those allocations. So that's where we are right now, just so that there's no confusion. And I do yield now.
Speaker Mahoney.
Hi there. So first off, I apologize for the long wait you guys had before getting up there. I do have a couple questions, though, for between you guys and Finance Director Claiborne. First off, the immediate concern I had with funding 30 grand and then still having students have to pay for the concert. Is there concerns with PNC there? Are they partnered organizations that we don't have to deal with that?
They're partnered.
Okay,
and also
cool.
theater does the same thing. So does Performing Arts Council.
Cool. Just wanted to make sure we're not breaking anything there. I was curious if you had any, I know it's probably still under wraps and everything, but do you have any like inklings of or examples of artists you might be pursuing here?
So, yeah, so we are taking suggestions. I would say that when I sat down with Tammy Kuhlbeck to discuss this, we pulled the Walker Hayes contract because Walker Hayes performed at Stevens, and we pulled the Gary Allen contract because Gary Allen performed at Stevens. And so we were looking at someone who would be similar in name and scope to Walker Hayes or Gary Allen. We actually, because we have not had any guarantee of funding, we have not sent Stevens a list yet of who to pursue. My understanding from Tammy is how this will work is that once we've secured funding, I'll send her a note with our recommendations for artists, and she'll reach out to those agents and see if any of them are interested. But our direct comps were, we looked at a Lindsey Sterling concert just because it was something of similar price, but then it was Gary Allen's concert and Walker Hayes's.
Okay, perfect. At the concert and kind of with like home kickoff and all this stuff, how much, this is for our own personal plug, we always like to, anything we fund, have like, you know, sponsored by student government or funded by student government. Would that be something that would be applicable at the concert, have some kind of advertising or something that it's like, you know, funded by student government?
Sure.
Yeah, so we have a couple different sponsors, and we have multiple ways to kind of do that advertisement for you. So all of our mass emails, we make t-shirts, so we can always put a logo on the back. The t-shirts that we have are Homecoming Central members wear the entire week with Central on the back saying, like, we're here for questions, we're here for help. Also here to enforce the rules that we have. So t-shirts, emails. We also have a banner that we hang at all of our events that has logos of all of our sponsors.
Perfect. And then the final question was for at homecoming kickoff. So I know 2 years ago, for example, and again, I'll use our own organization, we actually had a float in the parade. It's still one of my favorite pictures that I have because it was my truck. But I'm curious, you know, how are you going to let other student organizations join in? It says, you know, student organizations being kind of a part of it. Have you considered reaching out? Like, how does that
So
look?
we had 50 total in the fall work on it. we had been very intentional up until that point. We actually sat in Homecoming Central meetings, and everyone had to like pick their favorite 2 things that they saw on the list and email those clubs. We reached out to student engagement to get that put in the fall. We reached out to the Student Innovation Center to get those clubs and activities involved. We tried to cover everybody. Admittedly, it's difficult to do so, but we tried to cover our bases to make sure everyone knew about it. After year 1, we have some statistics now that we could give to clubs and probably be an incentive to participate. But last year in year 1, it was really just about emailing as many people as we could to try to get people involved, and we ended up with 50 organizations.
Perfect. Yeah, I would think doing like, mass email general call to student organizations, like be a part of this kind of kickoff would be a good idea. Go ahead.
We also have like tabling on campus, like all the fall leading up to homecoming. I also just wanted to add, since the parade is kind of in discussion and you might be a little curious, the parade was a great event and we didn't change it because it was unsuccessful. We changed it because it wasn't inclusive. We had multiple student orgs wanting to be involved, and they just didn't have the resources. They can rent like a trailer from campus, but they aren't there for inspections. And some students can't get off of campus. We weren't allowed to host the parade on campus because it sounds like Michelle, which is a touchy subject. So the kickoff was kind of that replacement, and we did see like a huge increase. For example, 2 years ago when we had the parade, I think we had like 7 orgs that weren't a sorority and fraternity involved, and that increased like a lot with the kickoff.
Perfect. Yeah, that all sounds great.
My only other note is that because there have been questions, the parade did have associated points for our Greek chapters. The kickoff does not. So we had 50 organizations, 0 of them were Greek. The Greek organization points got changed so that they were all part of Excitement in the Streets. So when we say 50 organizations, a lot of the Greek students came because they could pick up T-shirts and during that time. But as far as showcasing, those were 50 organizations that were not Greek chapters.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
Senator Holliday.
Hi, I want to begin by saying I love homecoming. I was on Homecoming Central last year. Very big fan. One, I was just wondering if you could expand on what kickoff entertainment is for everybody, like what you're looking at in regards of entertainment.
Sure. So, for example.
So entertainment can go a couple different ways. 2 of the things that we had were like live performance opportunities. So on the stage that we had 9 different student orgs perform, including a pep band, but the stages are very expensive. So we kind of guessed that number. Oh, that's staging, sorry. So that spot, and then we have another spot. So we're kind of hoping to expand that to have more performers. But we also have the model carillon that comes, which is, if you're not familiar, it's kind of a mini version of the Campanile, which was a huge hit. But that is very expensive to move because they have to rent like a Penske truck, and they also have to hire people to move it. We also had a petting zoo, and
I'm trying to think of other things that we spent money on. The big thing, the kickoff entertainment budget is for things such as the model carillon and the petting zoo, things that we would bring to the kickoff that we would then pay for. The staging, just to be clear, would be a sound system and a stage for student organizations to perform on. So that's the difference in those 2 items. Is the entertainment is things that like we've contracted other people to do the entertaining for, and then the staging is to supply our student organizations with a place to perform.
And we found that like having a few of those things that we pay for, because we know we're like telling you that student orgs are there, and that's very exciting. That's always not enticing enough for someone to come out on a Sunday. But having those bigger items as like those main attractions help get people there as well.
Perfect. And then my other question is depending on how Senate goes with this, if we choose to up your funding about another $40,000, in terms of like your T-shirts and your advertisements and stuff, would you be willing to consider putting student government's name on some of that stuff? Some like additional, just like partnered with like student government or like sponsored, some other like shout outs to us almost?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Then I yield.
Senator Holliday, is your speaking privilege, do you yield? Senator Schnepp.
Yeah, I know that you said that there's going to be about like 2,500 people at this concert. And I know you said that you could have some student discounted tickets. How many are you thinking about for like students? And then also like, will you be able to open up, like, let's say all these student tickets sell out, the discounted ones, but some friends still want to go. So like, let's say they want to open up, like, buy the general tickets and pay the extra money. Would you open up those to students as well first before the general public?
To be honest with you, I don't know a number because I don't know what the number will depend on the cost of the concert as a whole.
Okay.
So I'd be doing myself and you a disservice giving you a number because I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay.
I asked Tammy Kuhlbeck at the center to, when we got our $30,000 and we started finding things, we would find the number of students who could get discounted tickets at $10, $15, and $20. And the number that made the most sense to me was $20, even before I knew the number, because I wanted to get the most students involved. I would be very okay with, after that student presale ended, if there are students who are still, if we sell out of the student presale and there are students who are still wanting to go, I'd be more than happy to open this student general public tickets up ahead of the general public tickets.
Got it. Okay, that was my
For sure.
two
For
questions.
sure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Senator Gopa.
So I really like your plan of advertising to students who really don't know what homecoming is. I still don't know what homecoming is, which is sad. Is there any way where students don't need to pay for the tickets, like that $20 fee?
Sure. So I talked about this with Director Kuhlbeck, and the answer was we could do yes if we found a way to fund the entire concert independently. So if we said we needed $100,000, we funded it in full, gave Stevens a check and said, we're hosting a concert for, the students, have them reserve their tickets. We could do it if we came and requested that sort of sum of money. Now, when we looked at our budget, that was going to effectively double the Homecoming Central budget. But the way that we would be able to do that is by funding the entire concert independently of any ticket revenue.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
Vice Speaker Bruick.
Thank you guys for coming out, and sorry for you guys having to wait so long. It's the big meeting. I think this homecoming kickoff stuff sounds all great. I'm super on board with all this funding. The concert is, I don't know, I'm not saying I'm like opposed to it. I don't want to give anyone the wrong idea. It's just, it's coming off weird to me. So just, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I'm understanding this $30,000 is effectively like a down payment that we're giving to Stevens, saying we have some money for this, and then because we have that money, or you guys have that money, they will then say, okay, great, now we can go look for people to then bring a full concert in, which would require more money, but which all that extra funding would come from the ticket sales on the event itself.
That is true.
Okay.
And the only reason that I don't have some of those numbers tonight is because Stevens is currently in the process of securing their 2023-2024 season. And so they're working behind the scenes to get their set stuff in stone. Tammy Kuhlbeck works overtime all the time and has been extraordinarily helpful as we've thrown these back and forth. They're trying to get things like their season and their Broadway and stuff signed. And so until I didn't feel comfortable trying to jump the gun and say, can you get us a hold of an artist and then not be able to fund it. That was the rationale there.
Yeah, I understand that. That makes perfect sense to me. So just to be absolutely clear, this $30,000, if you have the concert, that's all that you'd need for student government, because the rest of the funding would come from the tickets, correct? You wouldn't need to come back and ask us for more money or anything?
I would not intend on asking you for more money. One way or another, we would pay for the rest of the concert. Right. It would be. I don't intend on coming back and asking for the other $70,000. No.
Okay.
And I throw that number out because that's a very general number, but it would be in the ballpark of that. I have no idea what the concert would actually end up costing, but it would be somewhere around there when we looked at the comps. But no, we would try to use this money and then use our avenues and get the concert to be a go, but I would not come back and ask for additional funding for this item. Yeah.
And then for the $30,000, the total specifically, you kind of touched on it, I believe, but that's just what you think is the minimum that you should be giving to Stevens for them to, that's the minimum down payment.
Right.
They would want to have.
I would have felt more comfortable going to Stevens with a little bit more money. This was the bare minimum that I felt we could ask for and have Stevens incur the risk. Obviously, if we did something more than this, we could give a lot more discounted student tickets, but it also, every cent that I ask for more from you is an increase on our budget from last year. And so that's why we went with $30,000. It seemed reasonable to go to Stevens with that, but it also it inflated our budget, but it didn't double it as it could have.
And then Finance Director Claiborne, did you or Finance Committee have any concerns with just specifically the $30,000 that this would be increasing the budget over what it has been in the past?
No, I think the biggest thing that we changed in committee was the discounted tickets to the concert. I was more comfortable doing the $30,000, as Adam said, to kind of do like, we have solidified funding, what can we do? Because when we do fund theater and performing arts, we fund tickets. So we fund tickets for just students and then also learning communities for performing arts. And then for theater, we fund each show. So within theater, we fund lighting, costumes, book, all you can think of. And there are a few, like obviously tech fees that have to be there for Stevens to actually obtain and go through with the people. And obviously you have to fund the performer, them coming, their band, the whole shebang. So we were comfortable doing that $30,000 specifically for a concert. So obviously everyone who deals with entertainment on campus, especially student engagement, can kind of understand that the performer is one line item, but them going there, them actually performing, all the fees that kind of go behind the burner, on the back burner, that students don't see, that are besides entertainment, can easily be half of what the entertainment actually is. So we just did the $30,000 so we can have a set fee that they can bring to Stevens and be like, we have solidified funding in any sort. Here's the $30,000, and then proceed from there.
Okay, thank you all for all my barrage of questions. I yield.
Is there any further discussion on the two line items concerning the concert and the homecoming kickoff? Is there any further debate on those two specific line items? If there's no further debate, we can move into debate on the entire budget as a whole. And if there's no debate there, I would love to entertain a motion to approve, deny, or recommit the entire budget. It has been moved and seconded to approve the entire SALC budget. Is there, moved and seconded to do that. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing no discussion, we'll move into a vote. Being another budget, this will take an affirmative 19 to pass. When I call your name, please say yes, no, or abstain. Agba. Yes. Becker. Braun. Yes. Bruick. Burks. Yes. Dre. Yes. Eisma. Yes. Engelken. Yes. Frencher. Yes. Gopa. Yes. Hackbarth. Yes. Heidenreich. Yes. Holiday. Yes. Kuehler. Yes. Mahoney. Yes. Margaret. Yes. Mays. Yes. Momini. Yes. Schnepp. Yes. Slater. Yes. Tansey. Yes. Topete. Yes. Vo. Yes. And Bruick. With a vote of 22 to 0, the motion carries.
Thank you.
We will move into our final divided question for this bill, the student government budget as a whole. So discussion is, the floor is now open for discussion, if there is any. Vice Speaker Bruick.
Vice Secretary Claiborne, if you want to say anything about student government budget.
Yeah. So I would just, I think we should just extend debate to all line items. I'll just go through it real quick.
Technically, it is Vice Speaker Bruick's speaking privilege, and so if he so wants to make that motion, he can.
Move to extend debate to all line items.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to extend debate to all line items. All line items are now open for debate.
I don't have anything that I'm particularly interested in. This is just kind of what we do. We always look at our own budget because we're spending money on ourselves, and that is kind of important. Finance Director Claiborne, if you have anything you would want to look at in particular.
Yeah, so I forgot to explain this in my program, but if you do look on the screen, you will see a total of 6 columns, so quantity, amount, total, STU-org, GSB, and GSB rec. So the GSB rec specific column is what initially organizations request for. As you can see, if you look back at the SALC one, they originally asked for 0. That's a common mistake for organizations. They just forget to change from STU-org to GSB. So then everything else, if there is anything red within the GSB rec, that is a change from the rec to the actual given amount. So the only thing that we see that is red is the student engagement flyer distribution. Since Sophie works over in ESOS with student engagement organizations that are advised by student engagement affiliated professional staff do not have to pay for flyer distribution, so that is why that is 0 funded. But just to kind of go through everything, mass email for 5 of them, advertising for Get Involved booklet, those did increase by 50, Christine? 50, right? 25 or 50. Get Involved booklet increased overall, yeah. So that is why that is an increase. PR budget is the 3,000. Office supplies is 1,000 as normal. The other addition is the D&I budget for $3,000. Inauguration for $3,500. Miscellaneous. Miscellaneous is kind of just an end-all, be-all line item for what we do. So that is for food, for annuals. If anything, I kind of don't see fit within any other part of the operating account or operating budget. I'll put into miscellaneous. MU event management, there was an increase from last year, so that is why there is an increase from FY23. Then, and obviously we do have to pay them. Retreat is $2,500, SI is $2,000, printing is $100, and that's just for printing of the printer. And then the salary and benefits for full-time advisor, there was an increase in Sophie's salary, so that is why the salary is increased from last year as well as the benefits. And then this year we also added the $3,000 line item for professional development. And within PNC, we can fund $3,000 for professional development for any partner or sponsor organizations. Obviously, we're ourselves. So we added that in there. So if there is anything within professional development that Christine or Sophie sees fit for her position, we will allocate funds for that. Then we have the clerks. Clerks, rules, finance, Senate, clerk of the court, and then also annual allocations. So those are for all clerks. Finance is $30 normally, but then for annual allocations, it's $45. And then obviously $20 for rules, $45 for Senate, and then $15 for court. And then for finance director gets 3-4 scholarship for fall and spring, and then also a summer scholarship. Parking passes, there was an increase from 610 to 660, so that is why there is an increase in that. President gets full in-state for fall and spring and also summer. Vice president gets 3/4 for fall and summer, but no for fall and spring, but no summer. And then speaker as well. I thought I forgot speaker. Sorry. Speaker Mahoney. Then for speaker, we have 1/2. And then utilities, Ethernet, telephone, and then additional web space for our website. Any questions?
Vice Speaker Brooke, I do believe is it still your speaking privilege? Perfect. Senator Gopa.
This is gonna seem like a silly question, but why are we still paying for fax?
Printer.
Oh. And for the Ethernet, for the printer again, right?
Yeah. So that's just the plug that we put into the wall. We have to pay for that.
Also, can we reduce the GSP requirement for the inauguration and retreat?
I would recommend not, because since it's in the MU specifically for the inauguration, we have to go through catering, and catering is more expensive. And also, I do want to have a nice inauguration. I want to celebrate everyone and what they did for student government. And then retreat, there was an increase since we go to the Des Moines Y Camp every year. There was an increase from last year, kind of per person. And also too with the winter retreat that we kind of want to stay consistent with, and we want to do it in the MU. That's another thing that we have to do for catering. So I would not recommend.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
Is there any further discussion on all line items for the student government budget? Vice Speaker Bruick.
All right, so what I was trying to figure out in my last speaking privilege, so I just had a question about the various committee budgets. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yes.
So PR, SI, and DE&I.
Yeah.
I just was curious, so I think all of the PR and SIs are the minimum, but DE&I's is 3,000 and the minimum in that bylaw is 2,000?
Yeah.
So I just was curious as to how you guys reached that the other two should have the minimum and then DEI should have 3. I don't necessarily have a feeling on it. I just wanted to know the committee's rationale and what went into that decision.
So my rationale specifically for that, because obviously I'm the one who did the budget. Obviously PR and SI, they do a lot of events, but a lot of their events can take and have taken place consistently outside of the MU. What we've seen since D&I has to hold town halls, and a lot of them historically have been in the MU, and with catering, obviously, we want to expand into more outlets. So this year specifically, D&I is not taking place within the MU because they want specific catering from local businesses within Ames. And I do want to support local businesses. I think obviously we can amend it to 2,000. It doesn't matter. But my rationale was because since D&I has to put on town halls consistently, and obviously to have students come to an event, there has to be food. D&I knows that. Last week for the Rico's Tacos, that was around $234 for 80 tacos. But if we do want to have a restaurant, like an actual restaurant, because Rico Tacos is just a taco truck, it's going to cost obviously more. And if they do want to host events in the MU, they have to go through catering. So my rationale was because D&I host more events that could be utilized by food. Obviously, you have Lifts and Wellness, which is pretty consistent. And we also have some events within PR that they do, like Women's Week, Women's Day, that was including food. But D&I has done more events this year relating to food, so I kind of wanted to add that in to the budget. But again, we can either decrease or during the year, PR and SI can come to finance and request more funding, and so can D&I.
Yeah, that sounds fine to me. I was just curious as to the rationale. That doesn't bother me at all. I yield.
Is there any further discussion on all line items concerning the student government budget? It's been moved and seconded to approve the student government budget. Is there any objections to moving into a vote on that topic? Seeing none, we'll move into a vote. When I call your name, please say yes, no, or abstain? Agba. Becker. Braun. Bruick. Burks. Dre. Eisma. Engelken. Frencher. Gopa. Hackbarth. Heidenreich. Holiday. Kuehler. Mahoney. Margaret. Mays. Momini. Schnepp. Slater. Tansey. Topete. And Vo. With a vote of 22 to 0, the student government budget passes. All right, and that wraps up 2022-3-018F. So we will now move into 2022-3-019F, annual allocations for fiscal year 2024. Senator Tansey.
I yield my time to Finance Director Claiborne.
Okay, well, thank you for the first one. So that's 50% of my time as finance director this year. So if we look at the bill as a whole, I've already explained it. There are a few amendments by Vice Speaker Bruick. When I originally did the bill, obviously it wasn't the appendices that we saw in the previous bill was not on the agenda, so I didn't know the number. So I just did the X's to replace those. So that would just be replacing that. I'll kind of dive a little deeper. I already talked about the specific line items. Again, if you do have any questions with those, please ask. For the Appendix A, again, for the footnote, it would be my program. For the 1, 2 would be from the actual bill that we just did for regular allocations. And then for 3, that would be Appendix A. So that is down below are the contracts that we have. So lectures, daily, student legal, student counseling services, which is the TAO app, shop, music, and then a multicultural liaison office. Those last 2, we don't really see that often, but we do have contracts with them consistently. And then again, for asset, that was from last week's approval for asset. And then that whole total has around that $4,000 that I mentioned allocated for administrative services. And then the 5, is it on there? I think, oh yeah, wait, this is messed up. No, we're good. And then the 5 would be the projected amount from asset. Because they're from until July, so that's why it says August 2nd. Sorry, I confused myself. And then that's that. If you do have any questions about contracts, also please let me know.
Senator Tansey, do you yield? All right, we'll move into discussion on the bill as a whole. Speaker Mahoney.
Since we did just pass the amendments to the daily contract, is this $310,000 here on the guaranteed allocations not right?
Well, yeah, but no, because the 340 will be, as I'm saying, as I think correct, the 340 is within the 44 that we allocate towards them. Their additional fee would automatically go to them. No?
Speaker Mahoney, do you yield?
I yield time to President Ludwig.
Right, so the money that we acquired for paying for the addition to the daily contract is also going to us. It goes directly to us, and then we pay it forward to the daily, basically.
Okay, then I would have to change, hold on. I need to do, I need like a 10-minute recess.
I move to recess for 10 minutes.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? We still have to vote on this. Question has been called for. And second, is there any objection to moving to a vote? All those, unanimous consent has been called for. Is there any objection to recessing for 10 minutes? Seeing no objections, we shall be reconvened at 9:27. We are back on. This meeting has reconvened. We are going to move back into discussion as a whole on the motion. Vice Speaker Berwick.
Mr. President, I move all of the amendments as reflected on the screen.
It has been moved and seconded to amend the bill as reflected on the screen. We'll move into discussion on those amendments. Speaker Mahoney.
I yield time to Finance Director Claiborne to explain.
Okay, so I already explained the appendix, the footnote. So for Appendix A, since there is a $200,000 increase in the daily contract, again, that $30,000 is still conditional on what they do. So that increase was from 310 to 510. So if you go up, the reoccurring and other obligations account increased to another $200,000. So that means as it's seen now, the supplemental funding from special projects is at 617. But when I did all of the calculations, I did off of no fee at all, no fee increase at all. So this was not even a fee increase that student government proposed, and not even the fee increase that Iowa State Daily proposed. So that is why it is significantly more than what we've seen in the past, because this is off of the $44 that we currently do have. So we can kind of take a more conservative approach with everything, and don't want to, obviously, as we see now, this is a budget. We don't know what's actually going to happen. So I did the 44 just to say, as the worst case scenario, what we could do. And that's basically what the big picture bill is. So as it's seen now, this would be the worst case scenario. If no fee increase at all next year, and everything is contingent on how it is now, then supplemental funding projection from special projects would be the 617. And that obviously, if those are passed and the fees go through for next year, for FY24, that will significantly decrease immensely, if that makes sense.
And so just to put it into context too, the fee increase that we're talking about is a $5 increase per semester that is currently waiting basically approval from the Board of Regents.
Yeah.
So, knock on wood. There's no reason it shouldn't be. Yeah, there's no real reason it shouldn't be approved. So, in other words, when we originally were looking at the 417, that was worst case scenario at our $44. Because of the $5, we would actually be putting even less than 417 is.
And right now, just quick math, that the $10 increase for all year without the summer fee would be $299,600, less than what we see now.
Yeah, so we would be well below 400,000. So I think we're good. I'm going to call the question on the amendments.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded to, we're moving into a vote. Is there any objection? Seeing none, we'll move into a vote now. Unanimous consent has been called for. Is there any objection to passing the amendment by way of unanimous consent? Seeing no objections, the amendment shall be adopted. We're back on the motion as a whole. If there's no discussion, we'll move into a vote on the bill as a whole. We will be doing roll call. When I call your name, please say yes, no, or abstain. Agba. Thank you. Is there any objection to removing Senator Becker from the roll? Seeing none, she shall be removed. All right. When I call your name, please say yes, no, or abstain. Agba. Yes. Braun. Yes. Berwick. Yes. Burks. Yes. Dre. Yes. Eisma. Yes. Anglican. Yes. Frencher. Yes. Gopa. Yes. Hackbarth. Yes. Heidenreich. Yes. Holliday. Yes. Kuehler. Yes. Mahoney. Yes. Margaret. Yes. Mays. Yes. Mominy. Yes. Schnepp. Yes. Slater. Yes. Tansey. Yes. Topete. Yes. And Vo. Yes. With a vote of 22 to 0, the motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. Good job, everyone. We'll now move on to 2022-3-023F, funding the Jack Trice Character Award Scholarship with Vice Speaker Berwick.
All right. Would the representative please approach the podium? So this is what we saw in first read last week, how all bills work, you know. So this would give $37,000 to the Jack Trice, I forget the Jack Trice Character Award Scholarship, and I'll yield to President Ludwig to talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so as was shared last week, and I think I've also talked to Senate a couple times before now about it, earlier this year, the administration asked Jaden and I to consider some ways in which we might, student government as an organization would celebrate the centennial, something big we could do, and the centennial of Jack Trice's death. There's a lot of programming going on this year in the lead up to the centennial, and there will be some programming going on after. A lot of different events. The foundation has been pushing a lot of things, and so one of the things that we kind of started looking at this semester was reinvesting in the Jack Trice Character Award Scholarship. This was a scholarship that student government started back in 1984 with an initial investment of $10,000. It's something the student government has invested some smaller funds in over the years, but since 1984, the account has grown to $100,000, and the scholarships are given to students who represent Jack Trice's values of character and service and community. And so this is a scholarship given out by the Dean of Students Office. And so as we were kind of looking at this, we thought this would be a great way for us to celebrate Jack Trice and then also reinvest in something that student government's already put some money behind. Actually, if you go to the Jack Trice 100 website, there is a section about the scholarship and about the fact and student government support for it. Student government has a long history of pushing for remembering Jack Trice. We actually were one of the main parties that pushed for the naming of Jack Trice Stadium back in the 80s, and so I think this is a something that we've interacted with before that I think it would be very easy and makes a lot of sense for us to invest in the lead up to the centennial. We settled on the amount of $37,000 because we wanted to make a substantial investment into the scholarship fund, and 37 was Jack Trice's number, and so that's how we landed on that specific dollar amount. This, if approved by Senate tonight, will be a part of the Foundation Day of Giving on the 4th and 5th. So the foundation will use this as a challenge fund to encourage other people to donate specifically to the Jack Trice Character Award Scholarship Fund. So the dollars that we give here tonight will be multiplied as a part of that Day of Giving. But yeah, I know that we are short on time before we need to leave the MU, so I will yield for questions.
All right, the floor is now open for debate. We'll start with Speaker Mahoney.
So I will say, Chief Officers has talked about this. I'm in huge support of doing something like this. The only thing I had kind of question-wise, and I guess it would be partly probably President Ludwig and Finance Director Claiborne. I know there were two other numbers that were thrown out there at 50 grand and 100 grand, and I just wanted to ask kind of why we settled on the 37 over the other two.
I would give way to the Finance Director.
Yeah, so originally $100,000. Finance Committee thought that was obviously a little too much. Obviously, we want students to have scholarships, but $100,000 is a lot, specifically for an award that's only $2,000 awarded for 2 students. Mm-hmm. And obviously, it would be nice to have it, but again, there are student affairs and other departments on campus continuously put it into the fund yearly. In their budget, obviously, if it were to open up to other students, perfectly fine. But we just thought that $100,000 kind of sitting in a pool of money that's consistently given to other money as well would kind of just be counterintuitive. $50,000 also thrown around. We thought that would be nice, but I do kind of think specifically for the 100-year anniversary of his death, I do think a symbolism of who he was as a person is kind of what we represent as student government. We are the ones who named Jack Trice Stadium. We do kind of, student government itself does have a history of honoring Jack Trice, and I think the $37,000 is kind of more monumental and signifying and ceremonial. for his 100-year death than just $50,000. So I think also I just thought it would be a cool idea to give to the fund $37,000, just kind of as a symbol of his number.
Perfect. And then the other thing I will say, just so everyone kind of understands, when we do make this kind of donation, it's not just like a blanket, like we're going to fund, 15 scholarships or whatever, if they're $2,000. It's goes into the endowment fund that they invest, and then they take the money off the top. So it will pay for itself over time. That's why that fund grows and doesn't just deplete. You don't have to continuously keep putting money in it. This will help grow to give more scholarships, essentially.
Do you yield? Is there any further debate on the motion as a whole? Question has been called. Do you? All right. Senator Margaret, do you have some thoughts?
Yeah, I just have a brief comment or brief question, I guess. Are there any specific requirements for the scholarship beyond demonstrating like character and some of the values that you mentioned? Are there other like GPA requirements or things like that?
You need to have a 3.0.
Okay.
Yep, here, let me pull up, I had this open on the Student Affairs website. Yeah, so the criteria is a 3.0 GPA or higher. Recipients shall embody the traits and character of Jack Trice, such as courage and commitment to social causes, and must be an undergraduate student or incoming student.
Okay. Yeah, I like the idea of this. That's sort of my one friction point is the GPA requirement, just because I don't entirely see, it's kind of strange to me that we're funding something that's for a specific academic, portion of the student body. So that's maybe my one area of friction, but I digress. I yield.
Senator Tansey.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo Senator Margaret's remark on the GPA requirement. These are our dollars, student dollars. Every student pays, doesn't matter what your GPA is. That being said, I will probably vote in favor of this bill. So I yield.
Is there any further discussion on the motion as a whole? Question has been called for and seconded. Is there any objection to moving to a vote now? Vice Speaker Brewick, closing comments. Seeing none, we'll move into a vote. When I call your name, please say yes, no, or abstain. Starting with Senator Agba. Braun. Becker, Brewick. Burks. Dre. Eisma. Engelken. Frencher. Gopa. Hackbarth. Heidenreich. Holiday. Kuehler. Mahoney. Margaret. Mays. Momini. Schnepp. Slater. Tansey. Topete. Vo. Margaret. Tansey. With a vote of 18 to 1 to 3, the motion passes. We'll now move into new business, starting with 2022-3- Senator Holiday. Moving to 2022-3-025F, funding shop meal kits with Senator Eisma.
Hey everybody, meal kits that the Director of Student Services and Director of Affordability want to make for SHOP. Take a look at it, yes or no questions. Yeah.
Are there any questions of intent for Senator Eisma? Seeing none, we'll move into 2022-3-026F, funding Western team with Senator Tansey.
They have a conference.
Are there any questions of intent for Senator Tansey? Seeing none, we'll move into 2022-3-027F funding cyclone support with Senator Kuehler.
All right, hello everyone. Good job to us for sitting through this meeting. This bill is essentially funding the website that Director Everest and I have been constantly plugging. So yes or no questions, please, if you have any.
Are there any questions of intent for Senator Kuehler? Seeing none, we'll move into 2022-3-023SA renewing lectures contract with Vice Speaker Bruick.
Howdy, folks. This is the final contract in the contract renewal and creation signing series. So this is renewing the lectures contract. We currently have a contract with lectures. It's not set to expire right now, but it's set to expire, I believe, next year. And lectures really wanted to be able to schedule people out in advance beyond next year. They're already looking that far ahead. And they'd rather have the contract set when they're making commitments for that far out. So this is just renewing it a little early, giving them a new contract to let them do that.
Are there any questions of intent for Vice Speaker Bruick? Seeing none, congratulations. We've moved on to closing announcements. Are there any closing announcements for the good of the body? We'll start with Director Haas.
Hello, it's actually me, your Director of Outreach. I sent an email to you guys around 7:30 today talking about different outreach events that are coming up. We have a lot of openings available. We need a lot of help with After Dark and Wolves and Wellness. Please, if you have the availability, please sign up for those things. We also have the indoor game event coming up on April 3rd. Also, if you want to participate in the end-of-year video, the Microsoft Forms is in the email, so please sign up for that. I put a description of those things as well. And if you are not able to do any of the outreach events that I have posted, but you still want to get your outreach credits done, you can give a presentation to a class. Just come see me or text or email me with that information. Thank you.
Director Claiborne.
Not long. Just wanted to say thank you. That's it.
President Ludwig.
16 days. We're getting close to the end of it now, but other than that, I just wanted to once again pass my apologies on for the contracts. We got there in the end. That's what matters. You would really think documents that had been in front of 50 people and the University Legal Counsel would not have errors, but it happens. So thank you for the people who caught the errors and for everyone being patient during that process. Have a good night.
Advisor Sarver.
Thank you, Vice President Ulrich. Really quickly, I just wanted to say down in the MU's art gallery is currently the Focus Grant Art Exhibit, which is a thing you directly fund. So you approved their budget tonight. So if you want to go take a look at some pretty cool art that students at Iowa State's campus were able to complete because of your continued contributions to that program, I would say take a look at it. It's down. They're open from 11 to 4 Monday through Friday and 1 to 4 on Sundays, and then it'll be up until about probably the week before prep week. So take a look. It's free. You just get to walk in. So
Senator Mays.
Please do my survey. I'm begging y'all. Please, please, please tell everyone in student government to do my survey, please. Thank you.
All right, seeing no other further closing comments, all I've got to say is congratulations. We finally had our longest Senate meeting of the year. Vice Speaker Bruick.
I'll keep it brief. We don't have much time. Shout out Finance Director Claiborne and Finance Committee. They did a lot of work to make this happen. It's their big thing, and it sucks, and they spent a lot of hours doing it. So, yay, we finished it. I'm still working on doing the little transition stuff for new senators, working with Sophie on that. But so, gonna do that. That's happening. Super cool. That's it.
All right, really quick. Vote for Senator of the Year. If you didn't get that email, please let me know. Otherwise, Senator of the Year voting is due next Senate meeting at midnight on next Wednesday. We still have big bills coming, so we're still going to continue to have long meetings. I'm sorry. We're going to also hopefully be seeing some seating bills for a bunch of nominations. I don't know if I'm going to try to do that this term so that they can be ready for next term. I don't know exactly yet. Encourage people to run for Speaker, encourage people to run for Vice Speaker, encourage your friends to join Senate, join at-large positions, be a director. We've got lots of open positions that are coming up that emails are going out. So encourage your friends to join. And reminder, 5 p.m. next week in this room, right, Sophie? 5 p.m. next week in this room, joint city council meeting. With that, to move to adjourn, go Cyclones.
Earned.